Well, hello, everyone. Good evening. Welcome to Smarter News. My name is Jenna. It's great to see you tonight as we take in the final day of the Republican National Convention. We've seen 4 days now of the Republican Party really laying out its argument to the American people about why it's the party that should take leadership come Election Day. And I really was pausing there for a second as I was thinking about Election Day. Of course, we vote on Election Day, but the party would really take office, at least the office of the presidency and office in Congress, come January of the following year, 2025. That seems like a long time away, doesn't it? 2025, but it's not that was not that long till Election Day, and it's not that long until next year. But really, where we are now in this political news cycle, we're seeing so many developments really moment to moment. So let's talk a little bit about why tonight matters, and I'm going to go ahead and welcome in, if I can, our friends on Instagram as well as our friends on X. It's great to see you all tonight as we try something different here on Smarter News, try to do something a little bit new and fresh. One of the things I want to do for you for the news is make the news work for you again, bring back customer service to the news. And there's no reason why you can't have a role in the broadcast as well. And if there's questions that come up during tonight or throughout really the news cycle, you should have a direct line to the journalists that are working on your behalf, which is something that I want to provide for you. Even with the small team that we have, we still can have big impact. And we have that impact because of you. So thank you very much for being a supporter of quick, concise, nonpartisan news. So Eric Trump is speaking right now. This is the president's son. And we have just a little bit of an agenda. We're slightly behind. You see President Trump there with his grandchildren. Those are Eric Trump's children and Eric Trump's wife, Laura, who spoke as well at the Republican National Convention, of which she is a part of the Republican Party now. If you'd like me to dip in, I can dip in anytime here. You can really help drive this broadcast and what you want to see. What we're going to expect to see after Eric Trump is Dana White, the CEO of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, or the UFC. That's the mixed martial arts league that has really grown in popularity over the last several years. And President Trump likes to attend those events, and has really had an interesting group of supporters emerge from the UFC. We think about celebrity status and who are the celebrities out there that are impacting maybe younger voters, and you might think about actresses or comedians or a model. I mean, all sorts of people. Maybe it's debatable how much celebrities really matter anymore, and who are the celebrities? Because don't we all think that we are them, right? On social media, everyone's a star today. Everyone's a star. But it's been an interesting thing to see the connection between former President Trump and the UFC, and see that it resonates with that particular audience, and in a way that President Biden does not, and other Democratic candidates have not. So, and that's just in recent years. So when you see Dana White, that's a sign that we're getting closer to President Trump speaking. But you can see President Trump's in his seat right now. And so he's not anywhere close to the stage. He's going to need to go back there. He probably needs to freshen up a little bit. Everybody needs a little powder. I speak from experience. You need a little powder before you get in a big stage like this under the bright lights. So we're probably a little bit of ways away from that. Let's talk about why tonight really matters, though, and why this night is important for the Republican Party overall. This is the first time that we're going to see former President Trump speak since his assassination attempt on Saturday. This is his first major public address. We know that he has made comments in interviews and also in casual conversation that he believes that the message that he was going to deliver tonight has now changed, but we don't know exactly what that means. So it's a significant night because of that. It's also a significant night because this is likely going to be the biggest, if not one of the biggest audiences that he is going to get as we cruise into the final months of this campaign. Right now, and listen, you have to be really careful with these estimates. We're using Nielsen data, which is arguably outdated. So many people are streaming content, and whether or not that's being caught up in the dragnet of information about who's watching what when, we don't really know. But if you look back at over the years, the numbers for viewership for the final day at the RNC in 2020 was 24 million people, and in 2016 was 32 million people. So it's a really big audience. And so for this one moment in time, President Trump is going to have the microphone to himself. He doesn't have to answer any questions. He can say whatever he wants to say, however he wants to say it. He's under favorable lighting and amongst a favorable audience. And those sort of conditions don't exist always. So that's why tonight really matters too. And this will also matter similarly for the Democratic Party when their convention takes place in August, but we're several weeks away from that. Now, we have news, perhaps, from the Democrats tonight. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? I can lower this slightly. I do think we have to be very cautious with this reporting because I do find that it's ironic that we're getting this reporting on tonight, which is arguably the biggest night for the RNC. So if you wanted to start leaking reports to distract from President Trump's speech, now would be the night to do it. And we're seeing a variety of different reporting about the future of President Biden in this race. The pace of the reporting is important to mark, meaning that over the last 24 hours, the reporting has picked up. We also learned that President Biden tested positive for COVID-19, so he's off the campaign trail. He's away from the White House. He's away from the public eye. However, let's just take stake in where we're at. We're 3 weeks away from the debate. Can you imagine? 3 weeks ago, feels like a lifetime. 3 weeks ago, we were watching the first debate between the two leading candidates for president. After that debate, the story changed for the Democratic Party with questions about whether or not President Biden was going to stay in the race. And we've gone through different ebbs and flows as to how serious the concerns have been from Democrats, who's been on the record, what the president has said about his future in this race. But in the recent days, we're back to the wave cresting, where we're getting more information. We're getting more information about President Biden, perhaps from these variety of different sources who are speaking to leading journalists that tend to have good sourcing within the Democratic Party and large platforms, as well as places like the Wall Street Journal. What's happened this week is President Biden gave an interview to NBC. He's given a series of different interviews as well as different campaign events. And these interviews and campaign events at times have received moderate reviews and sometimes negative reviews. They have never been applauded, and there's never been a moment where the reporting has suggested that he's back on the upswing. And in the recent days now, this avalanche of reporting about him perhaps leaving the race or a change of tone has taken place. I have a little bit of an interview if you'd like to see it, or if you'd like me to dip back into the RNC, we can do that. The information we have from Mark Halperin is about 3 minutes. So I'm worried about going there. So perhaps I can share that after we hear President Trump speak. I want to make sure we don't miss anything here because the reason why we are here is for the Republicans. But why don't I play just a little bit of it? Let's just play a little bit of it. And if we see anything happen when it comes to the Republican National Convention, we'll come back. I just want you to hear the detail in this reporting. Now, Mark Halperin, by the way, was very mainstream. He was working with all the major networks. He was doing a lot of investigative work. He was widely respected. And then he went through a period of time where he was accused of a variety of different abuses and was basically fired. And now he has reemerged on Newsmax, which is a more conservative channel that has been growing in popularity over the years, moderately. So he is a contributor to Newsmax. That's where the news that he received was broken just a few hours ago. Excuse me. But I also want to note that what he's reporting has been somewhat echoed by other reports that we have seen. And so let's just listen here for a moment.
Sources, this is happening all of a sudden. Everyone said it would happen gradually and then all at once, and that's what's happening. According to my sources, President Biden has agreed to step down as the Democratic nominee.
Oh, man.
It will happen as early as this weekend. A speech has been drafted for him. He will continue on as president, is his intention. He also will not, I'm told, endorse Vice President Harris as his successor. They're hoping that he will endorse an open process in which the convention will be open to Vice President Harris and a few other candidates in Chicago to pick the Democratic nominee for president. The belief is that Vice President Harris is already looking at potential running mates to go to Chicago with a full ticket, including one possibility, Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, and perhaps the governor of Pennsylvania, Governor Shapiro. Other possible candidates who are being talked about include Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, perhaps Gretchen Whitmer, and again, the vice president running. On the first ballot, the regular delegates would be allowed to vote under this agreement that's being talked about amongst the president and high-level Democratic officials. The regular delegates would vote on the first ballot. If there is no winner on the first ballot, the so-called super delegates would be allowed to vote on the subsequent ballot. This decision was reached, I'm told, all of a sudden because of the high-level pressure from Nancy Pelosi, Barack Obama, and others, and as well as the decision of many of President Biden's top aides that there was no path forward for him, that he would not be able to win this election, win the general election. And therefore, he's stepping aside again as early as this weekend.
So, Mark, what are the political ramifications for a party that based much of their platform on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they're passing right over Kamala Harris, and he's not going to be endorsing her, according to your sources?
Now, according to my sources, he will say very nice things about her. They do not want what some of my sources have been calling a Kamala coronation, that the problem, in part, that they found themselves in was that President Biden was not seriously challenged for the nomination. I'm told by some of her people, I don't know that the vice president thinks this, but some of her people believe she will win this, that she'll choose a strong running mate, that she does have the support of many of the delegates who are Biden-Harris delegates, and that she can win this basically on her own. And at least one of her allies said to me, this is better. Better to not be anointed by Joe Biden, better to show independence, better to show with a strong ticket the capacity to win the nomination on her own.
Well, Mark, that said, though, you're very familiar with campaign finance laws. He has, 200 and 300 million in his war chest right now. I believe, in my understanding, is Kamala would be the only one who could absorb that and continue on the campaign. How's that going to work when all their big pocket donors have already pushed for that?
Well, there's all sorts of money, right? There's super PAC money, there's low dollars. The belief is that a new ticket will inject excitement into the party, and that both low-dollar donors and the big donors who in the last few days have sent a strong message to President Biden that they will not support his being the Democratic nominee. So there's a strong belief that with a new ticket that they can raise money from the big dollar donors who can give and bundle hard dollars, can give super PAC money, as well as the small dollar donations, that they will come in to whatever the new ticket is, whether it's the vice president or not. If it is the vice president, most campaign finance experts believe she does get to keep the Biden-Harris.
Okay, that was a lot of information, but I just decided to let it play. Eric Trump is still speaking. Let's just talk about reporting with unnamed sources of that detail with a question of, well, what's real and what's not. We always have to be skeptical. We always have to look at information critically. We have to ask questions about the timing, such as tonight. We have to think about things broader than the last 24 hours, which is why I discussed the last several days and also placed as 3 weeks from the debate. These are all factors. What I would say about a report like this is it's sort of like a house plant that you just brought in. You put it on the kitchen table and you're like, I'm just going to leave it there for a second. I'm not sure exactly where to put it in this house. I'm not exactly sure where it's going. I'm just going to leave it right there. I see it. I'm not sure what to do with it yet. And that's how I would deal with this sort of reporting right now. It would be a miss to not share it with you because it's not alone. It's because we're seeing it from a lot of different sources. The Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, this journalist, that journalist, and they're starting to come more in sync. Now, whether or not we actually see President Biden make a change is to be determined. And right now, what we're going to be watching tonight is energy for the Republican Party. It sounds a little woo-woo. We can talk about any sort of political analysis. There's a lot of people that are way smart about the way voters behave, what states you need to win, by how much, what that looks like. And we'll get into that when the time is right. But there's a real human element in what we're watching with elections and really the news in general, and that's simply energy and momentum. And right now, there's been a lot of energy with the Republican National Convention. There's been a lot of energy because of the unfortunate events that transpired this weekend. There's a lot of energy surrounding President Trump. And there could be an energy shift if suddenly there's a major movement within the Democratic Party that brings a lot of attention and question and maybe even perhaps excitement. And so it is something to keep an eye on because almost almost like currents or even like the wind kind of rushing from areas of high pressure to low pressure. Things were constantly moving. This energy moves very quickly between campaigns. And although people will say, well, there's a lot of voting that takes place in the weeks leading up to election day, that's true. Of course, there's a lot of early voting that takes place. But there's a lot of voters that wait until election day because it's important to them to vote right around that time, if not on that day. And any number of events or energy shifts can happen that can then change the outcome of this race. So we're both nearing the conclusion of this election cycle. We're getting closer every day, and yet we're still many, many weeks away from knowing what this is going to look like. So here's where we stand tonight with this race in flux and a real question about what tone President Trump is going to set. It's not only the tone, but what does he choose? How does he choose to talk? What does he choose to talk about? At the Republican National Convention, each day has had a little bit of a separate theme. The two that have stood out most have been Make America Safe Again and Make America Strong Again. And we heard from the vice presidential nominee last night, J.D. Vance, who is speaking about making America strong again and really diving back into the communities that have been most hurt by what he describes as policies from politicians that are disconnected from what Americans truly want. There was a part of that speech that I feel could be overlooked. And when you hear a speech and you hear it a couple times, you get something different each time. A major theme from J.D. Vance was America first, that we really need to prioritize America and our desires over others. America first is heavily criticized by some of those that believe that that's not the way that America should lead in this world. So that was very strong. The other point of J.D. Vance's speech last night was the forgotten man, the people that have been forgotten by those power brokers that seem to rule the world, whether or not they have political power or financial power or otherwise. They've forgotten the American. And the government lives to serve and exists to serve that person. But there was another part of his speech when he was talking about a cemetery where he has a plot for his family, which is, if you think about it, feels a little bit dark, but he was explaining the number of generations that were in this Kentucky cemetery and how that's what a nation is that these people that are building families, our families that are being built here in a nation that we are really connected to. It's not just sort of a academic discussion. We are the nation. And he was really making that point that the nation exists for the people. And so those were his themes. So the question that we go into tonight with is, will those also be President Trump's themes? Will we hear that echoed? Because J.D. Vance was very specific. The forgotten man, America first, a strong nation. He talked about Wisconsin, where the Republican National Convention is being held. He talked about Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. These are very, very key swing states. And this is a great time to remind all of us that in the last several elections, regardless of who won, voting in these states was extremely close. The difference of just a few thousand people could be the entire difference in this race and has been the case over the last several years. So it's a good time to remind ourselves of that. So he really put forward this plan, J.D. Vance, of the Republican Party focusing on these swing states and speaking directly to communities in these states that share a similarity of losing a sense of community or economy or possibility. So that was what he spoke about. Is that what we're going to see from President Trump? I have a question for you. So many of you are joining us from different places around the country. Emily, it's nice to see you. Emily's joining us from Milwaukee, just a mile from the convention. Emily, what's it like? That's what we want to know. What's it like driving around town, Emily? Is it what's security like? Something that else we should mention. And it looks like we're seeing a transition here. I'll pull up the sound for you so you could hear it as well. This is the first time that President Trump is going to be in front of such a big crowd again. I mean, he's been at the convention for the last several nights, but he hasn't stood behind a podium. And one has to think, let's just take the politics out of it for a moment if we can. It's very difficult to do, but let's just do that for a moment as an exercise. How would you feel if you were behind a podium on Saturday and there were shots at you and that one just grazed your ear in a moment's difference could have taken your life, how would you feel stepping in front of a crowd to a podium again? When you give a live address, and this is difficult, it doesn't really matter how big the crowd is. It's all sort of the same. I've never spoken in front of a crowd like this, and nor well, a broadcast of several million people, but not, let's say 20 million people, something to that effect. That could be the collective audience on a night like tonight. It it's unexpected when something's live. It can be unexpected. The emotions that come up can be really unexpected, and no matter how many times you do it, no matter how many reps you have, it still can be something unexpected. So I'm curious. We're curious how President Trump feels tonight. Darby, great to see you from the great state of Georgia. And does anyone have any additional questions about tonight, or from what some of the reporting that we heard? This is a band that's been playing quite a bit, by the way. Actually, I just looked up their name. I should have written it down. And for those of you who are, sorry for the typing, if you can hear it, I know it can ricochet. I got long nails, which I very rarely do. 6 wire, for those of you who, my husband's going to be really disappointed in me because he plays the guitar. And apparently, this is something I should know. 6 wire is the name of the band. And NPR, which is not necessarily favorable to conservative thinking, is often described as more progressive news source, describes them as a dad rock band. I mean, I think that could be a little pejorative. What about the dad? They're cool dads. They're playing all sorts of different music. The band gets its name from a slang term for guitar, which its management agency calls a fitting name to a band fronted by 3 guitarists. They've been playing a lot tonight because they're filling a lot of different time. And this is a very difficult event to plan for, this sort of live audience event, because everything sort of has to work according to the right time for everyone. And so this band has earned whatever they are paying them because they're filling the time and keeping the audience engaged. Katie has a question. Are you surprised the photo of the president's ear was so widely shown? It seems like that would normally be more censored. That's a very interesting question, Katie. I haven't really thought about that. In general, when you see and it really depends on the press. I noticed this, part of the reason I became a journalist was an experience during 9/11. Go back 20 years, one of the most significant news stories in American history. And the way different news agencies handle graphic images changes depending on your location in your country and an editorial judgment. So the blood, did you notice this online? Obviously the president had some blood on his face after this event. And initially these images were all over the place. And then you may have jumped on Instagram or Facebook or X and you would get a warning about it. So the American press does not like blood in general. If you go overseas, you might get something more graphic. But that event, the nature of it, a live event that was taking place in Pennsylvania, the timing before the RNC, all of it, the amount of press that was there. There's a lot of press that's usually around the former president for these rallies, but because of the timing of this and because of all the energy, again, that's been developing after the debate, there was a lot of really key photographers there. Also, it was in Pennsylvania, key photographers from the Associated Press, from the New York Times, from all the major agencies, and not just any photographers, like their lead photographers were there. As soon as those images were out, they were gone. I mean, they were gone. Just decimated. They're disseminated. That's how I should say it. Excuse me. Just so easily spread. Let's listen here for a second, because this is the first time that we've seen Melania Trump come into the convention. Quick, does anyone know that classical music? Should I know that music? Is this something composed for this event? This is the first time that we have seen her at the convention. And so notable that she is here tonight. And that, as you might have seen, was where former President Trump was standing. So he likely left. Now she's in. And we expect another video or speaker, which is going to be Dana White, as well as potentially a surprise performance by Kid Rock. So let's listen in here.
This is a story as uniquely American as the ideals and freedoms we all cherish. A story of a life dedicated to dreaming big. A story about giving back to the people in his beloved city. But most of all, this is a story about putting his country first. And it's a story best told in pictures. Young and confident, Donald Trump wasn't afraid to think big and build even bigger. And he left his mark on the New York skyline that greeted visitors from around the world. But he wasn't just an American entrepreneur. He became a folk hero. Celebrities and sports stars wanted to be seen with him. Politicians sought his approval. And New Yorkers just loved him. And he loved them back. And he gave back. Just one example, saving the Woolman skating rink.
The Woolman skating rink in Central Park is open again. The city spent nearly 6 years and $12 million trying to fix it. And then to the rescue, developer Donald Trump. As Tracy Egan tells us now, he accomplished in 3.5 months what the city couldn't do in 6 years.
Donald, you performed a great public service.
There was no denying that Donald Trump was the toast of the town, but he was also something even more important, a patriotic American. And like many others, he was becoming increasingly troubled by the direction of our country.
Because I really am tired of seeing what's happening with this country, how we're really making other people live like kings, and we're not.
You've said, though, that if you did run for president, you believe you'd win.
Well, I don't know. I think I'd win. I tell you what, I wouldn't go in to lose. I've never gone in to lose in my life. And if I did decide to do it, I think I'd be inclined. I would say that I would have a hell of a chance of winning, because I think people, I don't know how your audience feels, but I think people are tired of seeing the United States ripped off.
But who would ever run for president and leave such a glamorous life? Appearances in movies, best-selling books, a widely popular TV show. But for Donald J. Trump, the calling to save his country was even stronger. The mission, more important. The number of Americans being left behind, too large. And so, in Donald Trump fashion, he announced he was running for president, in it to win. And he did.
From his first day in office, the Washington politicians learned something about President Trump. He's not afraid to fight for what he believes in. They call that having the courage of your convictions. First up, the Trump tax cuts, largest in America's history, and it led to higher take-home pay for working families. Unfortunately, today, taxes are up and incomes down. The politicians just never learn. Next for President Trump, secure our border. Check. Miles and miles of wall built. ISIS and other terrorists deterred. But now, we have the Barney Fife of border security, leading to 250,000 Americans dead from fentanyl coming in. Brutal migrant crime spreading across America. And ISIS now here. President Trump promised he'd keep America out of endless wars. Welcome words to the families of our young men and women who serve. And another promise kept. He started by strengthening our military, then traveled the world, meeting with our allies, and even with our main adversaries, just so they understood that America's strength and resolve was back. Because that's what a strong commander-in-chief does. And it led to a stable world at peace and our troops safe. Today, a different story. Our enemies smelled weakness, then set the world on fire. Putin saw it, then invaded Ukraine. Hamas saw it, then started a war in the Middle East. There's one more thing we've learned about President Trump. He believes so strongly in America, so optimistic for our possibilities, and so committed to fighting to once again make our country great, that there is nothing that is going to stop him.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kid Rock.
What up, America? If you're ready for President Trump to take the stage, I need everybody to stand up. I need everybody to put a fist up in the air. Everybody, get a fist up in the air. Now follow me. Say fight, fight. Say fight, fight. Say fight, fight. Say Trump and scream. The devil without a cause. I'm back with the beaver hats and Ben Davis slacks. 30-pack of stroll, straight rock and roll. No Rogaine in the propane flow. The chosen one, I'm the living proof. With the gift of gab from the city of truth. You know I jab, stab, and knock critics back. And I did not stutter when I said that. I'm going platinum, selling rhymes. I went platinum 7 times. Still they ill and want to see us fry. I guess because only God knows why. Why? Oh, they call me cowboy. I'm the singer of the black. Throw a fist in the air. Let me see where you at. Say fight, fight. Say fight, fight. Say fight, fight. I say Trump, Trump. Like ACDC and ZZ Top. We'll see this beasties and the kings of rock. Skinner, Seeger, Lip, Corn, Stones. David Attico and the No-Show Jones. Yeah, pass that bottle of brown. Got the rock from Detroit, the soul from Motown. The underground, straight Detroit pimp. With tracks to Mac and slap back to back. Never gain no pay, I don't play with ass. Well, watch me rock with Liberace flash. Punk rock the Clash, boy bands are trash. I like Johnny Cash and Grandmaster Flash. Flash. Oh, they call me cowboy. I'm the singer of the black. Throw a fist in the air. Let me see where you at. Say fight, fight. Say fight, fight. Say fight, fight. I say Trump, Trump. I'm an American badass. Watch me, kid. You can roll with rock or you can. I'm the ultimate. I'm like Amazing Grace. I'm on rock and roll. Never rock this place. All super fly. Living double wide. Psychom alive. The big dog to ride. Bill sack to share. Bringing flash to flare. Like a long hair swinging middle finger in the air. Snakeskin boots, 65 Chevelle. See me riding sin and hit a rebel. Yeah, I won't live to tell. The we do? Rock for freedom and rock for truth. Who knew I'd blow like Oklahoma, Florida, Georgia, Arizona? Smell the aroma and check my hits. I know it stinks in here, cause Trump's the They call me cowboy, I'm a singer with back. Throw a fist in the air, let me see where you're at. Say Trump, Trump. Say Trump, Trump. Say Trump, Trump. Say Trump, Trump. I need to hear you louder than that. One more time. I'm a cowboy, badass and black. You singing Trump, Trump. From side to side, from front to back. Come on, Trump, Trump. I put Detroit City back on the map. We singing Trump, Trump. Kid Rock's in the house. This is where I'm at. Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for the most patriotic American badass on earth, President Donald J. Trump. But first, another American badass, my brother, Dana White. God bless America.
All right, let me just jump in real quick. So we expect Dana White to actually introduce former President Trump. I see a lot of your messages on the screen so far tonight about, who's being chosen to speak, how they're being chosen. What does that look like? Really interesting observation. It reinforces the stereotype of MAGA. We have to remember the audience here. The audience is the Republican Party. You see those that are in attendance tonight that have enjoyed this event, many of them for several days. And so this is the core audience. This is a good reminder that this address is both to the base, so those that are the supporters of the party, that are firm supporters, but also can be a reach to those that could be on the sidelines. And that's what makes this speech tricky and all the more interesting to watch. So let's listen to Dana White here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Dana White. I am the CEO and president of the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So 2 weeks ago, I got a call from President Trump asking me if I'd be willing to speak tonight. As usual, there was no pressure, no demands. He asked me as a friend, and of course I said yes. Then, after I accepted his offer, he sent me a text message, and I just want to read to you a little piece of what President Trump wrote to me. Dana, I'm so honored that you will be doing the introduction at the National Republican Convention. Think of it as the biggest fight you ever had, a fight for our country and even the world. I only wish you didn't have to interrupt your family trip, but I hope they understand they love you and they know how important this is. Now think about this. This man's running for president of the United States. He's fighting for the future of this country, and he's concerned about interrupting my family trip. That's the President Trump that I know, a man who truly cares about people. The mainstream media likes to push the narrative that he doesn't care about anyone but himself. I absolutely know that's not the truth, because I've been friends with this guy for 25 years. And for the people who know me, they'll know this is true. I just want to make something very clear. Nobody in the Trump campaign has ever told me what to say. Nobody tells me what to say, and I'm nobody's puppet. And I'm not telling you what to think. I'm telling you what I know. And I know President Trump. I know President Trump is a fighter. I've been saying this since 2015. Now look at what's happened over the last 10 years. We have all seen it with our own eyes. I'm in the tough guy business, and this man is the toughest, most resilient human being that I've ever met in my life. The higher the stakes, the harder he fights, and this guy never, ever gives up. So what's at stake here? The answer is in President Trump's text, and I quote, "A fight for our country." I know why he's running for president again. Why else would he put himself through everything he's dealt with just to get back here? We all know he doesn't need this. This guy's got a great life. He has a beautiful family, and he has achieved everything that you could possibly achieve in life. I know President Trump is literally putting his life on the line for something bigger than himself, and he's willing to risk it all because he loves this country. And I know he wants what's best for the American people, all American people. I know he's running for president to save our American dream. I'm living the American dream, and I know the American dream is very real. Whether you were born in this country or came here from someplace else, this is the last real land of opportunity. President Reagan once said, "Government's first duty is to protect the people, not run their lives." And if you're buried in government red tape, how will you ever start your own business? If you're struggling to pay your bills, how can you ever afford to start a family? And if you don't feel safe in your own town, why would you ever buy a house? I know that President Trump is fighting to save the American dream, and that's what's at stake in this election. We are choosing who we want to lead us in this fight. I know President Trump is a proven leader, a fearless leader, and this country was in a much better place when he was in the Oval Office. In my mind, the choice is clear. But this election, we all get to choose. I know I'm going to choose strength and security. I know I'm going to choose opportunity and prosperity. I know I'm going to choose real American leadership and a real American badass. And I'm not telling you what choice to make, and I'm not telling you what to think. I'm telling you what I know. I know America needs a strong leader, and the world needs a strong America. I know Donald J. Trump is the best choice for President of the United States. My fellow Americans, it is my honor to introduce the 45th and soon-to-be 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again, just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause our flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. American, where at least I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today, 'cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. Sing it. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit to Houston, and New York to LA. There's pride in every American heart, and it's time to stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. But there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Wow. And thank you, Dana. Thank you, Kid Rock, sometimes referred to as Bob. And thank you, Lee, right from the beginning. Thank you very much. What a talent. What a beautiful, beautiful soul. Thank you. Friends, delegates, and fellow citizens, I stand before you this evening with a message of confidence, strength, and hope. 4 months from now, we will have an incredible victory, and we will begin the 4 greatest years in the history of our country. Together, we will launch a new era of safety, prosperity, and freedom for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. The discord and division in our society must be healed. We must heal it quickly. As Americans, we are bound together by a single fate and a shared destiny. We rise together or we fall apart. I am running to be president for all of America, not half of America, because there is no victory in winning for half of America. So tonight, with faith and devotion, I proudly accept your nomination for President of the United States. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And we will do it right. Going to do it right. Let me begin this evening by expressing my gratitude to the American people for your outpouring of love and support following the assassination attempt at my rally on Saturday. As you already know, the assassin's bullet came within a quarter of an inch of taking my life. So many people have asked me, what happened? Tell us what happened, please. And therefore, I will tell you exactly what happened. And you'll never hear it from me a second time because it's actually too painful to tell. It was a warm, beautiful day in the early evening in Butler Township in the great Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Music was loudly playing, and the campaign was doing really well. I went to the stage, and the crowd was cheering wildly. Everybody was happy. I began speaking very strongly, powerfully, and happily because I was discussing the great job my administration did on immigration at the southern border. We were very proud of it. Behind me and to the right was a large screen that was displaying a chart of border crossings under my leadership. The numbers were absolutely amazing. In order to see the chart, I started to, like this, turn to my right and was ready to begin a little bit further turn, which I'm very lucky I didn't do, when I heard a loud whizzing sound and felt something hit me really, really hard on my right ear. I said to myself, wow, what was that? It can only be a bullet. And moved my right hand to my ear, brought it down. My hand was covered with blood, just absolutely blood all over the place. I immediately knew it was very serious, that we were under attack, and in one movement proceeded to drop to the ground. Bullets were continuing to fly as very brave Secret Service agents rushed to the stage, and they really did. They rushed to the stage. These are great people at great risk, I will tell you, and pounced on top of me so that I would be protected. There was blood pouring everywhere, and yet, in a certain way, I felt very safe because I had God on my side. I felt that. The amazing thing is that prior to the shot, if I had not moved my head at that very last instant, the assassin's bullet would have perfectly hit its mark, and I would not be here tonight. We would not be together. The most incredible aspect of what took place on that terrible evening in the fading sun was actually seen later. In almost all cases, as you probably know, and when even a single bullet is fired, just a single bullet, and we had many bullets that were being fired, crowds run for the exits or stampede, but not in this case. It's very unusual. This massive crowd of tens of thousands of people stood by and didn't move an inch. In fact, many of them bravely, but automatically stood up looking for where the sniper would be. They knew immediately it was a sniper. and then began pointing at him. You can see that if you look at the group behind me. That was just a small group compared to what was in front. Nobody ran, and by not stampeding, many lives were saved. But that isn't the reason that they didn't move. The reason is that they knew I was in very serious trouble. They saw it. They saw me go down. They saw the blood and thought, actually, most did, that I was dead. They knew it was a shot to the head. They saw the blood. And there's an interesting statistic. The ears are the bloodiest part. If something happens with the ears, they bleed more than any other part of the body. For whatever reason, the doctors told me that. I said, why is there so much blood? He said, it's the ears. They bleed more. So we learned something, but they just, this beautiful crowd, they didn't want to leave me. They knew I was in trouble. They didn't want to leave me. And you can see that love written all over their faces. Incredible people. They're incredible people. Bullets were flying over us, yet I felt serene. But now the Secret Service agents were putting themselves in peril. They were in very dangerous territory. Bullets were flying right over them, missing them by a very small amount of inches. And then it all stopped. Our Secret Service sniper, from a much greater distance and with only one bullet used, took the assassin's life, took him out. I'm not supposed to be here tonight. Not supposed to be here. Yeah. Thank you. But I'm not. And I'll tell you, I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God. In watching the reports over the last few days, many people say it was a providential moment. Probably was. When I rose surrounded by Secret Service, the crowd was confused because they thought I was dead, and there was great, great sorrow. I could see that on their faces as I looked out. They didn't know I was looking out. They thought it was over, but I could see it, and I wanted to do something to let them know I was okay. I raised my right arm, looked at the thousands and thousands of people that were breathlessly waiting, and started shouting, "Fight, fight, fight." Thank you. Once my clenched fist went up, and it was high into the air. You've all seen that. The crowd realized I was okay and roared with pride for our country like no crowd I have ever heard before. Never heard anything like it. For the rest of my life, I will be grateful for the love shown by that giant audience of patriots that stood bravely on that fateful evening in Pennsylvania. Tragically, the shooter claimed the life of one of our fellow Americans, Corey Comparator. Unbelievable person, everybody tells me. Unbelievable. And seriously wounded. Two other great warriors, spoke to them today. David Dutch and James Copenhaver. Two great people. I also spoke to all three families of these tremendous people. Our love and prayers are with them and always will be. We're never going to forget them. They came for a great rally. They were serious Trumpsters, I want to tell you. They were serious Trumpsters and still are. But Corey, unfortunately, we have to use the past tense. He was incredible. He was a highly respected former fire chief, respected by everybody. Was accompanied by his wife, Helen, incredible woman. I spoke to her today, devastated, and two precious daughters. He lost his life selflessly acting as a human shield to protect them from flying bullets. He went right over the top of them and was hit. What a fine man he was. I want to thank the fire department and the family for sending his helmet, his outfit, and it was just something, and they're going to do something very special when they get it. But we did something which cannot match what happened, not even close. But I am very proud to say that over the past few days, we've raised $6.3 million for the families of David, James, and Corey, including from a friend of mine just called up. He sent me a check right here. I just got it. $1 million from Dan Newland. Thank you, Dan. And again, when speaking to the family, I told them, I said, well, I'm going to be sending you a lot of money, but it can't compensate. They all said the same thing. You're right, sir. We appreciate so much what you're doing, but nothing can take the place in the case of Corey and the other two. By the way, they were very, very seriously injured, but now they're doing very well. They're going to be okay. They're going to be doing very well. They're warriors. So now I ask that we observe a moment of silence in honor of our friend Corey. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for others. This is the spirit that forged America in her darkest hours. And this is the love that will lead America back to the summit of human achievement and greatness. This is what we need. Despite such a heinous attack, we unite this evening more determined than ever. I am more determined than ever, and so are you. So is everybody in this room. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our resolve is unbroken and our purpose is unchanged to deliver a government that serves the American people better than ever before. Nothing will stop me in this mission because our vision is righteous and our cause is pure. No matter what obstacle comes our way, we will not break, we will not bend, we will not back down, and I will never stop fighting for you, your family, and our magnificent country. Never. and everything I have to give with all of the energy and fight in my heart and soul, I pledge to our nation tonight. Thank you very much. I pledge that to our nation. We're going to turn our nation around, and we're going to do it very quickly. Thank you. This election should be about the issues facing our country and how to make America successful, safe, free, and great again. In an age when our politics too often divide us, now is the time to remember that we are all fellow citizens. We are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we must not criminalize dissent or demonize political disagreement, which is what's been happening in our country lately at a level that nobody has ever seen before. In that spirit, the Democrat Party should immediately stop weaponizing the justice system and labeling their political opponent as an enemy of democracy. Especially since that is not true. In fact, I am the one saving democracy for the people of our country. And very big news, as you probably just read, on Monday, a major ruling was handed down from a highly respected federal judge in Florida, Eileen Cannon, finding that the prosecutor and the fake documents case against me were totally unconstitutional, and the entire case was thrown out of court. With all of that publicity, thrown out of court. If Democrats want to unify our country, they should drop these partisan witch hunts, which I have been going through for approximately 8 years. And they should do that without delay and allow an election to proceed that is worthy of our people. We're going to win it anyway, but worthy of our people. On this journey, I am deeply honored to be joined by my amazing wife, Melania. And Melania, thank you very much. You also did something really beautiful, a letter to America calling for national unity, and it really took the Republican Party by surprise. I will tell you, it was beautiful. In fact, some very serious people said that we should take that letter and put it as part of the Republican platform. That would be an honor, wouldn't it? Right, Mr. Congressman? But it captivated so many. So I also want to thank my entire family for being here. Don, Kimberly, Ivanka and Jared, Eric and Lara, Tiffany and Michael, Barron. We love our Barron. And of course, my 10 wonderful grandchildren. You saw a few of them up there on my lap before. And how good was Dana? Was Dana good? I mean, was he good? He was on probably the only vacation he's had in about maybe ever, because he works, but about 10 years with his wife, very far away. I won't tell you where, but very, very far away, beautiful place. And my people called and he said, I won't be able to do it. This is many, many years. I promised my wife I can't do it. And they came in, they said, Dana won't be able to do it. because he was my first, second, and third choice. I said, well, you know, that's too bad, but I understand he's away, and it's good. It's good for him. And that was it. About 30 minutes later, she came back in, sir, Dana just called. He's going to do it. And his wife, she said, you can't turn him down. You just can't do it. You have to go. That's a good wife. So he got on a plane. He got here a little while ago. Now he's going to get on the plane in a little while, and he's going to go back home to his wife. But they're great, and I just want to thank her and him and their whole family, because that's not easy. And Kid Rock, same thing. Called, he said, I want to be a part of it. I want to be a part, because, you know, Kid does his great song, Big, Big Monster song. I had no idea. You know, he became a friend of mine over the last 10 years. And he's amazing. Everyone loves him. I didn't even know how big he was. You know, he has rallies, 35, 40,000 people he gets every time he goes out. I think he's making so much money, he doesn't know what the hell to do with it. You want to know? And then we have my other friend, and I've known him so long, and we took that song, and it was a big success, but we made that. I saw a chart of great songs to America. That was #1 on the chart recently, #1. So that's Lee Greenwood, a very special, beautiful person. He's a beautiful man. But they all wanted to be here. They called. And how about the Hulkster? How good was he? Is he up? Where is he? Boy, oh boy. You know, they may call that entertainment. I know about entertainment, but when he used to lift a 350-pound man over his shoulders and then bench press him 2 rows into the audience, I say maybe entertainment, but he is one strong son of a gun. I will tell you, I watched it many times. There aren't a lot of entertainers that can do that, right? You were fantastic. Thank you very much. Followed by Eric. What was that all about? Boy, that was good. I didn't want to really come up here. But he was so great, and he's such a good young man. He went through a lot of trouble, and Don last night was incredible. They went through so much trouble. They got subpoenaed more than any people probably in the history of the United States. Every week they get another subpoena from the Democrats, crazy Nancy Pelosi, the whole thing, just boom, boom, boom. They've got to stop that because they're destroying our country. We have to work on making America great again, not on beating people. And we won. We beat them in all. We beat them on the impeachments. We beat them on indictments. We beat them. But the time that you have to spend, if they would devote that genius to helping our country, we'd have a much stronger and better country. And Jason, the biggest star in country music. Jason, thank you for being here. Jason, thank you very much. Jason Aldean, he's good. I like his wife even better, by the way. She's here. Thank you, Jason. But I'm thrilled to have a new friend and partner fighting by my side. The next Vice President of the United States, the current Senator from Ohio, J.D. Vance, and his incredible wife, Usha. He's going to be a great Vice President. He's going to be great. He'll be with this country and with this movement, greatest movement in the history of our country, Make America Great Again. When they criticize it, they say, we're going to try and stop MAGA. I said, MAGA is Make America Great Again. What are you going to stop? There's nothing to stop. Then they say, oh, that's right. It's very tough to fight it. And all of the people that did try and fight it have failed. But he's going to be with us for a long time, and it was an honor to select him. Great student at Yale. His wife was a great student at Yale. They met at Yale. These are two smart people. So, JD, you're going to be doing this for a long time. Enjoy the ride. And a very special thank you to the extraordinary people of Milwaukee and the great state of, oh, there they are. There they are. You are so easy to spot. And Green Bay's going to have a good team this year, right? They're going to have a good team. They're going to have a good team. Most of the audience doesn't like it, but it's true. You're going to have a very good team this year. And by the way, Wisconsin, we are spending over $250 million here, creating jobs and other economic development all over the place. So I hope you will remember this in November and give us your vote. I am trying to buy your vote. I'll be honest about that. And I promise we will make Wisconsin great again. We're going to make it. Thank you, Mr. Governor. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm here tonight to lay out a vision for the whole nation. To every citizen, whether you're a young or old man or woman, Democrat, Republican, or independent, black or white, Asian or Hispanic, I extend to you a hand of loyalty and of friendship. Together, we will lead America to new heights of greatness like the world has never seen before. We were right there in the first term. We got hit with COVID. We did a great job. Nobody knew what it was, but nobody's ever seen an economy pre-COVID. And then we handed over a stock market that was substantially higher than just prior to COVID. Coming in, did a great job. Never got credit for that. We got credit for the war and defeating ISIS and so many things, the great economy, the biggest tax cuts ever, the biggest regulation cuts ever, the creation of Space Force, the rebuilding of our military. We did so much. We did so much. Right to try. Right to try is a big deal. We got right to try. They were trying to get that for 52 years. Somebody's terminally ill. And hopefully there's nobody in this audience, but it does happen a lot. They're terminally ill and they can't use our new space age drugs and other things that we are way ahead. We have the greatest doctors in the world, the greatest laboratories in the world, and you can't do it. They've been trying to get that approved for 52 years. Wasn't that easy? The insurance companies didn't want to do it. They didn't want the risk. The labs didn't want to do it because if it didn't work, people are pretty far down the line toward death. They didn't want to do it. The doctors didn't want to have it on their records, so I got everybody into an office. 52 years they tried. Sounds simple, but it's not. And I got them to agree that somebody that needs it will, instead of going to Asia or Europe or someplace, or if you have no money going home and dying, just die. We got them to sign an agreement, agree to it, where they're not going to sue anybody. They're going to get all of this stuff. They're going to get it really fast. And what's happened is we're saving thousands and thousands of lives. It's incredible. Right to try. It's a great feeling. Under our leadership, the United States will be respected again. No nation will question our power. No enemy will doubt our might. Our borders will be totally secure. Our economy will soar. We will return law and order to our streets, patriotism to our schools, and importantly, we will restore peace, stability, and harmony all throughout the world. But to achieve this future, we must first rescue our nation from failed and even incompetent leadership. We have totally incompetent leadership. This will be the most important election in the history of our country. Under the current administration, we are indeed a nation in decline. We have an inflation crisis that is making life unaffordable, ravaging the incomes of working and low-income families, and crushing just simply crushing our people like never before. They've never seen anything like it. We also have an illegal immigration crisis, and it's taking place right now as we sit here in this beautiful arena. It's a massive invasion at our southern border that has spread misery, crime, poverty, disease, and destruction to communities all across our land. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Then there's an international crisis, the likes of which the world has seldom been part of. Nobody can believe what's happening. War is now raging in Europe and the Middle East. A growing specter of conflict hangs over Taiwan, Korea, the Philippines, and all of Asia. And our planet is teetering on the edge of World War III. And this will be a war like no other war because of weaponry. The weapons are no longer army tanks going back and forth shooting at each other. These weapons are obliteration. It's time for a change. This administration can't come close to solving the problems. We're dealing with very tough, very fierce people. They're fierce people. And we don't have fierce people. We have people that are a lot less than fierce, except when it comes to cheating on elections and a couple of other things. Then they're fierce. Then they're fierce. So tonight, I make this pledge to the great people of America. I will end the devastating inflation crisis immediately, bring down interest rates, and lower the cost of energy. We will drill, baby, drill. Can you believe what they're doing? But by doing that, we will lead a large-scale decline in prices. Prices will start to come down. Energy raised it. They took our energy policies and destroyed them. Then they immediately went back to them, but by that time, so much was lost. But we will do it at levels that nobody's ever seen before, and we'll end lots of different things. We'll start paying off debt and start lowering taxes even further. We gave you the largest tax cut. We'll do it more. You know, people don't realize I brought taxes way down, way down, and yet we took in more revenues the following year than we did when the tax rate was much higher. Most people said, how did you do that? Because it was incentive. Everybody was coming to the country. They were bringing back billions and billions of dollars into our country. The companies made it impossible to bring it back. The tax rate was too high, and the legal complications were far too great. I changed both of them, and hundreds of billions of dollars by Apple and so many other companies were brought back into our nation, and we had an economy the likes of which no nation had ever seen. China, we were beating them at levels that were incredible. And they know it. They know it. We'll do it again, but we'll do it even better. I will end the illegal immigration crisis by closing our border and finishing the wall, most of which I've already built. On the wall, we were dealing with a very difficult Congress. And I said, oh, that's okay. We won't go to Congress. I call it an invasion. We gave our military almost $800 billion. I said, I'm going to take a little of that money because this is an invasion. And we built, most of the wall is already built. And we built it through using the funds because what's better than that? We have to stop the invasion into our country that's killing hundreds of thousands of people a year. We're not going to let that happen. I will end every single international crisis that the current administration has created, including the horrible war with Russia and Ukraine, which would have never happened if I was president, and the war caused by the attack on Israel, which would have never happened if I was president. Iran was broke. Iran had no money. Now Iran has $250 billion. They made it all over the last 2.5 years. They were broke. I watched the other day on a show called Deface the Nation. Has anyone seen it? And they had a congressman who was a Democrat say, well, whether you like him or not, Iran was broke dealing with Trump. I told China and other countries, if you buy from Iran, we will not let you do any business in this country, and we will put tariffs on every product you do send in of 100% or more. And they said to me, well, I think that's about it. They weren't going to buy any oil. And they were ready to make a deal. Iran was going to make a deal with us. And then we had that horrible, horrible result that we'll never let happen again. The election result, we're never going to let that happen again. They used COVID to cheat. We're never going to let it happen again. And they took off all the sanctions and they did everything possible for Iran. And now Iran is very close to having a nuclear weapon, which would have never happened. This is a shame what this administration, the damage that this administration has done. And I say it often, if you took the 10 worst presidents in the history of the United States, think of it, the 10 worst, added them up, they will not have done the damage that Biden has done. Only going to use the term once. Biden, I'm not going to use the name anymore, just one time. The damage that he's done to this country is unthinkable. It's unthinkable. Together we will restore vision, strength, competence, and we're going to have a thing called common sense making most of our decisions, actually. It's all common sense. Just a few short years ago, under my presidency, we had the most secure border and best economy in the history of our country, in the history of the world. We had the greatest economy in the history of the world. We had never done anything like it. We were beating every country, including China, by leaps and bounds. Nobody had seen anything like it. We had no inflation, soaring incomes were going. Nobody can believe it. You can't believe what happened 4 years ago is happening now in reverse. And the world was at peace. Inflation has been a killer for our country. No matter what you make it, it doesn't matter because inflation is eating you alive. People that were putting away money, they were making great wages, the highest they've ever made, but they were putting away a lot of money. Now they are just being destroyed. They're not putting away anything. They're barely living. They're going into savings accounts. They're taking out their money to live because of inflation. Inflation, remember, it's called a country buster. You can go back to Germany from 100 years ago. You can go back to any country that suffered great inflation. We've suffered the worst inflation we've ever had. But go back and see what's happened to those countries. We've had the worst inflation we've ever had under this person. But in less than 4 years, our opponents have turned incredible success into unparalleled tragedy and failure. It's been a tremendous failure. Today, our cities are flooded with illegal aliens. Americans are being squeezed out of the labor force and their jobs are taken. By the way, you know who's taking the jobs that are created? 107% of those jobs are taken by illegal aliens. And you know who's being hurt the most by millions of people pouring into our country? The Black population and the Hispanic population, because they're taking the jobs from our Black population, our Hispanic population, and they're also taking them from unions. The unions are suffering because of it. Thank you. Thank you. I like you too. Thank you very much. Inflation has wiped out the life savings of our citizens and forced the middle class into a state of depression and despair. That's what it is. It's despair and depression. We cannot and will not let this continue. Less than 4 years ago, we were a great nation, and we will soon be a great nation again. We're going to be a great nation again. Thank you. With proper leadership, every disaster we are now enduring will be fixed, and it will be fixed very, very quickly. So tonight, whether you've supported me in the past or not, I hope you will support me in the future, because I will bring back the American dream. That's what we're going to do. You don't even hear about the American dream anymore. With great humility, I am asking you to be excited about the future of our country. Be excited. Be excited. And by the way, the news reports, oh, look at all of those big networks. Look at them. They're all here. But every one of them has said this could be the most organized, best run, and most enthusiastic convention of either party that they've ever seen. Every single one. And it's true. It's true. And there's love in the room. There's great love in the room. So I better finish strong. Otherwise, we'll blow it. And we can't let that happen. Now, this was great. All of the great people that spoke, and everybody hit a home run. I mean, there's not one that I can think of where I said, oh, gee, that wasn't great. Every single person. I refuse to be the only one. Don't do that to me. They're already getting ready. See, I gave them an idea. Now, this was a great convention. This was, I think we're actually going to go home and miss it. You know, usually with a first of all, look at these crowds. You'd never have this at a convention. Look at these crowds. Love. It's about love. This week, the entire Republican Party has formally adopted an agenda for America's renewal, and you saw that agenda. And it's very short compared to the long, boring, meaningless agendas of the past, including the Democrats. They write these things that are hundreds of pages long, and they never read them after they're done. In their case, fortunately, they don't read them because they're pretty bad. It's a series of bold promises that we will swiftly implement when you give us a Republican House. And Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. We have our great Speaker of the House with us tonight. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Thank you. A Republican Senate, we have many senators here. And send me back to our beautiful White House just a few short months from now. We're talking about just months. It can't come fast enough. We have to get it done. First, we must get economic relief to our citizens. Starting on day one, we will drive down prices and make America affordable again. We have to make it affordable. It's not affordable. People can't live like this. Under this administration, our current administration, groceries are up 57%, gasoline is up 60 and 70%, mortgage rates have quadrupled. And the fact is, it doesn't matter what they are because you can't get the money anyway. You can't buy houses. Young people can't get any financing to buy a house. The total household costs have increased an average of $28,000 per family under this administration. Republicans have a plan to bring down prices and bring them down very, very rapidly. By slashing energy costs, we will in turn reduce the cost of transportation, manufacturing, and all household goods. So much starts with energy. And remember, we have more liquid gold under our feet than any other country by far. We are a nation that has the opportunity to make an absolute fortune with its energy. We have it, and China doesn't. Under the Trump administration, just 3.5 years ago, we were energy independent, but soon we will actually be better than that. We will be energy dominant and supply not only ourselves, but we will supply the rest of the world with numbers that nobody has ever seen, and we will reduce our debt, $36 trillion. We will start reducing that, and we will also reduce your taxes still further. Next, and by the way, they want to raise your taxes 4 times, think of it, And all my life, I grew up watching politicians. I always loved politics. I guess I was on the other side. I'd watched and they were always talking about, we will give you a tax cut. We will give you a tax cut. My whole life, I was watching, I will give you a tax cut, right, Mr. Congressman? That's all they talked about. This is the only administration that said, we're going to raise your taxes by 4 times what you're paying now, and people are supposed to vote for them? I've never heard it. You're paying too much. We're going to reduce your taxes still further. We gave you the biggest one, as I said. We're going to give you more, and it's going to lead to tremendous growth. We want growth in our country. That's what's going to pay off our debt. And next, we will end the ridiculous and actually incredible waste of taxpayer dollars that is fueling the inflation crisis. They've spent trillions of dollars on things having to do with the Green New Scam. It's a scam. And that's caused tremendous inflationary pressures in addition to the cost of energy. And all of the trillions of dollars that are sitting there not yet spent, we will redirect that money for important projects like roads, bridges, dams, and we will not allow it to be spent on meaningless green new scam ideas. And I will end the electric vehicle mandate on day one. Thereby saving the U.S. auto industry from complete obliteration, which is happening right now, and saving U.S. customers thousands and thousands of dollars per car. And right now, as we speak, large factories just started, are being built across the border in Mexico. So with all the other things happening on our border, and they're being built by China to make cars and to sell them into our country. No tax, no anything. The United Auto Workers ought to be ashamed for allowing this to happen. And the leader of the United Auto Workers should be fired immediately. And every single auto worker, union and non-union, should be voting for Donald Trump, because we're going to bring back car manufacturing and we're going to bring it back fast. They're building some of the largest auto plants anywhere in the world. Think of it, in the world. We're going to bring it back. We're going to make them. We don't mind that happening, but those plants are going to be built in the United States, and our people are going to man those plants. And if they don't agree with us, we'll put a tariff of approximately 100 to 200% on each car, and they will be unsellable in the United States. We have long been taken advantage of by other countries. And think of it, oftentimes these other countries are considered so-called allies. They've taken advantage of us for years. We lose jobs, we lose revenue, and they gain everything and wipe out our businesses, wipe out our people. I stopped it for 4 years. I stopped it. And we're really ready to make changes like nobody had seen before. And remember, USMCA, I got rid of NAFTA, the worst trade deal ever made, and replaced it with USMCA, which is, they say, the best trade deal ever made. Actually, probably the best trade deal was the deal I made with China, where they buy $50 billion worth of our product. They were buying nothing. They buy $50 billion worth. They had to. But I don't even talk about it because of COVID. I don't even mention it, frankly, because of what happened with the China virus. We will not let countries come in, take our jobs, and plunder our nation. They come and do that. They plunder our nation. The way they will sell their product in America is to build it in America. Very simple. Build it in America and only in America. And this very simple formula, and Congress has to go along with us, and they will. This very simple formula will create massive numbers of jobs. We will take over the auto industry again and many hundreds of thousands of jobs. We lost so many jobs over the years. If you go back 20, 25 years, they've stolen, going to China and Mexico, about 68% of our auto industry manufacturing jobs. We're going to get them all back. We're going to get them all back, every one of them. At the center of our plan for economic relief are massive tax cuts for workers that include something else that's turned out to be very popular, actually. Here it's very popular in this building and all those hotels that I saw that are so nice. I'm staying in a nice one. It's called no tax on tips. No tax on tips. No tax on tips. I got that by having dinner recently in Nevada, where we're leading by about 14 points. Hello. I'll see you there very soon, everybody. And we're having dinner at a beautiful restaurant in the Trump building on the Strip. And it's a great building. And the waitress comes over. How's everything going? Really nice person. How's everything? Oh, sir, it's so tough. The government's after me all the time on tips, tips, tips. I said, well, they give you cash. Would they be able to find him? She said, actually, and I didn't know this. She said, very little cash is given. It's all put right on the check. And they come in and they take so much of our money. It's just ridiculous. And they don't believe anything we say. And they've just hired, as you know, 88,000 agents to go after them even more. And I said, this shows the level of my, most people go out, they hire consultants, they pay them millions of dollars. But I said to her, let me just ask you a question. Would you be happy if you had no tax on tips? She said, what a great idea. I got my information from a very smart waitress. That's better than spending millions of dollars. And everybody loves it. Waitresses and caddies and drivers and everybody's a large group of people that are being really hurt badly. They make money, let them keep their money. I'm going to protect Social Security and Medicare. Democrats are going to destroy Social Security and Medicare because all of these people, by the millions they're coming in, they're going to be on Social Security and Medicare and other things, and you're not able to afford it. They are destroying your Social Security and your Medicare. Under my plan, incomes will skyrocket, inflation will vanish completely, jobs will come roaring back, and the middle class will prosper like never, ever before, and we're going to do it very rapidly. But no hope or dream we have for America can succeed unless we stop the illegal immigrant invasion, the worst that's ever been seen anywhere in the world. There's never been an invasion like this anywhere. Third world countries would fight with sticks and stones not to let this happen. The invasion at our southern border, we will stop it, and we will stop it quickly. You heard Tom Homan yesterday. Tom Homan, put him in charge and just sit back and watch. Brandon Judd, the Border Patrol, he's incredible. These guys, they really, their job is a lot easier if they don't have to do anything, but they want to. They're patriots. Brandon Judd, Border Patrol, ICE. ICE goes out. You have to see what ICE does with MS-13. You have these are probably the worst gang, and ICE goes in there. And I know a lot of people in these rows here, and they're very tough people, but they don't want to do this job. They'll go into a pack of MS-13 killers. They're the worst, probably the worst gangs in the world. We have thousands of them. I moved thousands and thousands out in my 4 years. We moved them out, and it was a pleasure. But ICE would go right into a pack of these killers, and you see fists flying, you see everything flying, and then they take them. They put them in a paddy wagon. They take them back and they get them out of our country. And the other countries weren't accepting them back. And I called up and I said, tell them that we're not giving them economic aid anymore. And the next day I got calls from all of these countries that were terminated. Billions of dollars we spend on economic aid to countries that does us, frankly, no good. And the next day I was called by everybody. I couldn't take all the calls. Sir, what's the problem? I said, you won't take your killers back that you sent in caravans into America. You won't take them back. Well, sir, if you'd like us to, we would give very serious consideration to doing that. And within 24 hours, they were being taken back. For years and years, when I first came in, they said President Obama tried to get him to go back, and they wouldn't accept him. They'd put planes on the runway so you couldn't leave the plane. They'd close the road so you couldn't take the buses. They'd all have to turn back. As soon as I said no more economic aid of any kind to any country that does that, they called back and they said, sir, it would be our great honor to take MS-13. We love them very much. We love them very much, sir. We'll take them back. At the heart of the Republican platform is our pledge to end this border nightmare and fully restore the sacred and sovereign borders of the United States of America. And we're going to do that on day one. That means two things on day one, right? Drill, baby, drill, and close our borders. And by the way, and I think everybody as a Republican, as a patriot in this room, and most Democrats, we want people to come into our country, but they have to come into our country legally. Legally. Less than 4 years ago, I handed this administration the strongest border in American history. But you can see on the chart that saved my life, that was the chart that saved my life. I said, look it, I'm so proud of it. I think it's one of the greatest, it was done by the Border Patrol, one of the greatest charts I've ever seen. It showed everything just like that. You know the chart. Oh, there it is. That's pretty good. Wow. Last time I put up that chart, I never really got to look at it. But without that chart, I would not be here today. Never got to look at it. I said, you got to see this chart. I was so proud of it. And by the time I got to there, I never got to see it that day. But I'm seeing it now, and I was very proud. If you look at the arrow on the bottom, that's the lowest level, the one on the bottom, heavy red arrow. That's the lowest level of illegal immigrants ever to come into our country in recorded history, right there. Right there. And that was my last week in office. And then you see what happened after I left. Look at the rest. And if you go out a little bit further, it's getting to be a little bit old, but I love it anyway, right? But you can go much higher with those numbers. Look what happened right after that. The invasion began. We had the opposite. We stopped the invasion, but the invasion that we stopped was peanuts by comparison to what happened after I left. Look at what happened after I left. They took over our country. We ended all catch and release. We shut down asylum fraud. We stopped human trafficking and forged historic agreements to keep illegal aliens on foreign soil. We want them to stay on their soil. Under the Trump administration, if you came in illegally, you were apprehended immediately and you were deported. You went right back. The current administration terminated every single one of those great Trump policies that I put in place to seal the border. I wanted a sealed border. Again, come in, but come in legally. You know how unfair it is? So many people, hundreds of thousands of people have been working for years to come into our country. And now they see these people pour into our country at levels that are unprecedented, so unfair. And we're not going to do it. We're not going to stand for it. They suspended wall construction, ended remain in Mexico. We had a policy, remain in Mexico. You think that was easy to get from the Mexican government? But I said, you must give it to us. If you don't give it to us, there will be repercussions. And they gave it to us, but not easy. Canceled our Safe Third agreements, demolished Title 42, implemented nationwide catch and release. That's catch and release, where we catch them and release them into our country. We catch them and release them into Mexico. There's a slight difference. and took 93. This is the previous administration. 93 executive actions to throw open our border to the world. The entire world is pouring into our country because of this very foolish administration. The greatest invasion in history is taking place right here in our country. They are coming in from every corner of the earth, not just from South America, but from Africa, Asia, the Middle East. They're coming from everywhere. They're coming at levels that we've never seen before. It is an invasion indeed, and this administration does absolutely nothing to stop them. They're coming from prisons. They're coming from jails. They're coming from mental institutions and insane asylums. You know, the press is always on me because I say this. Has anyone seen Silence of the Lambs? The late, great Hannibal Lecter. He'd love to have you for dinner. That's insane asylums. They're emptying out their insane asylums. And terrorists are coming in at numbers that we've never seen before. Bad things are going to happen. Meanwhile, our crime rate is going up while crime statistics all over the world are going down because they're taking their criminals and they're putting them into our country. A certain country, and I happen to like the president of that country very much, but he's been getting great publicity because he's a wonderful shepherd of the country. He says how well the country's doing because their crime rate is down. And he said he's training all of these rough people. They're rough. He's training them. And I've been reading about this for 2 years. I think, oh, that's wonderful. Let's take a look at it. But then I realized he's not training them. He's sending all of his criminals, his drug dealers, his people that are in jails, he's sending them all to the United States. And he's different in that he doesn't say that. He's trying to convince everybody what a wonderful job he does in running the country. Well, he doesn't do a wonderful job. And by the way, if I ran one of the countries, many countries from all over, I would be worse than any of them. I would have had the place totally emptied out already. But we become a dumping ground for the rest of the world, which is laughing at us. They think we're stupid. And they can't believe that they're getting away with what they're getting away with, but they're not going to be getting away with it for long. That's what I can tell you. In Venezuela, Caracas, high crime. Caracas, Venezuela. Really a dangerous place, but not anymore. Because in Venezuela, crime is down 72%. In fact, if they would ever win this election, I hate to even say that, we will have our next Republican convention in Venezuela because it will be safe. Our cities will be so unsafe, we will not be able to have it there. In El Salvador, murders are down by 70%. Why are they down? Now, he would have you convinced that because he's trained murderers to be wonderful people. No. They're down because they're sending their murderers to the United States of America. This is going to be very bad. And bad things are going to happen, and you're seeing it happen all the time. That's why, to keep our families safe, the Republican platform promises to launch the largest deportation operation in the history of our country. Even larger than that of President Dwight D. Eisenhower from many years ago. You know, he was a moderate, but he believed very strongly in borders. He had the largest deportation operation we've ever had. Just recently, I spoke to the grieving mother of Jocelyn Nungary, a wonderful woman, a precious 12-year-old girl from Houston who last month was tied up, assaulted, and strangled to death after walking to the convenience store just a block away from her house. Her body was dumped near the side of the road in a shallow creek, found by some onlookers who couldn't believe what they had witnessed. Charged with Jocelyn's heinous murder are 2 illegal aliens from Venezuela who came across our border, were in custody, and were then released into the country by this horrible, horrible administration that we have right now. I also met recently with the heartbroken mother and sister of Rachel Morin. Rachel was a 37-year-old mom of 5 beautiful children who was brutally raped and murdered while out on a run. She wanted to keep herself in good shape. It was very important to her. She was murdered. The monster responsible first killed another woman in El Salvador before he was led into America by the White House. This White House let them in. He then attacked a 9-year-old girl and her mother in a home invasion in Los Angeles before murdering Rachel in Maryland. Traveled all throughout the country, doing tremendous damage. Rachel's mother will never be the same. I spent time with her. She will never be the same. I've also met with the wonderful family of Laken Riley, the brilliant 22-year-old nursing student. She was so proud of being first in her class, who was out for a jog on the campus of the University of Georgia when she was assaulted, beaten, and horrifically killed. Yet another American life was stolen by a criminal alien set free by this administration. And these were incredible people we're talking about. These were incredible people who died. Tonight, America, this is my vow. I will not let these killers and criminals into our country. I will keep our sons and daughters safe. As we bring security to our streets, we will help bring stability to the world. I was the first president in modern times to start no new wars. You know, we were the toughest, we were the most respected. And you saw this. Hungry, strong country, run by very powerful, tough leaders, tough guy. Press doesn't like him because he's tough. And he came out recently, they were asking him at an interview, the whole world is exploding. What's happening? What's going on? Viktor Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, very tough man. He said, I don't want people coming into my country and blowing up our shopping centers and killing people. But they said to him, tell us what's going wrong, what's happening, what is it? He said, there's only one way you're going to solve it. You got to bring President Trump back to the United States because he kept everybody at bay. He used a word I wouldn't use because I can't use that word, because you'd say it was braggadocious. The press would say he was a braggart. I'm not a braggart. But Viktor Orban said it. He said Russia was afraid of him. China was afraid of him. Everybody was afraid of him. Nothing was going to happen. The whole world was at peace. And now the world is blowing up around us. All of these things that you read about were not going to happen. Under President Bush, Russia invaded Georgia. Under President Obama, Russia took Crimea. Under the current administration, Russia is after all of Ukraine. Under President Trump, Russia took nothing. We defeated 100% of ISIS in Syria and Iraq, something that was said to take 5 years, sir. It'll take 5 years, sir. We did it in a matter of a couple of months. We have a great military. Our military is not woke. It's just some of the fools on top that are woke. I got along very well. North Korea, Kim Jong-un, I got along very well with him. The press hated when I said that. How could you get along with him? Well, you know, it's nice to get along with somebody who has a lot of nuclear weapons or otherwise, isn't it? See, in the old days, they'd say, that's a wonderful thing. Now they say, how could you possibly do that? But no, I got along with them, and we stopped the missile launches from North Korea. Now North Korea is acting up again, but when we get back, I get along with him. He'd like to see me back, too. I think he misses me, if you want to know the truth. Our opponents inherited a world at peace and turned it into a planet of war. We're in a planet of war. Look at that attack on Israel. Look at what's happening with Ukraine. The cities are just bombed out. How can people live like that where buildings, massive buildings, are falling to the ground? It began to unravel with the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, the worst humiliation in the history of our country. We have never had a humiliation like that. 13 heroic U.S. service members were tragically and needlessly killed. 45 others were horrifically wounded. Nobody ever talks about them. No arms, no legs, face explosions, horrifically wounded. And by the way, we have a man in this room who's running for the U.S. Senate from a great state, Nevada, named Sam Brown, who paid the ultimate price. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Sam. Thank you. He paid the biggest price probably ever paid by anybody that is running for office, and I think he's going to do great. He's running against a person that is not good, not respected, a total lightweight. But Sam, I think, paid, really, we were talking about it with some of the senators that are working so hard for Sam, but he paid the biggest price of any senator ever to run for the Senate. I don't think anybody's ever what he did. He was a real hero, a really great person, and he's running, and I hope that everybody gets out and votes for Sam Brown. And we also left behind $85 billion worth of military equipment, along with many American citizens were left behind. Many American citizens, emboldened by that disaster, Russia invaded Ukraine. They saw this group of people that were incompetent. We took the soldiers out first. No, we're going to take the soldiers out second. If they would have followed my plan, we had a great plan. But the plan only kicked in if they did everything perfectly, and they weren't doing things perfectly, so we said it doesn't kick in. 18 months in Afghanistan, we didn't have one, so they were killing them left and right, snipers. And I spoke to the head of the Taliban. You've heard this story. Abdul, still there, still the head of the Taliban. The press got on me. Why would you speak to him? I said, because that's where the killing is. I don't have to speak to somebody that has nothing to do with it. And I told him, don't ever do that. Don't ever do that again. Don't ever do that again. You've got to stop. Because during the Obama administration, many great people and soldiers, a lot of soldiers were being killed from long distance. I said, if you keep doing that, you're going to be hit harder than anybody's ever been hit by a country before. And he said, I understand, Your Excellency. He called me Your Excellency. I wonder if he calls the other guy Your Excellency. I doubt it. The other guy gave him everything. I mean, what kind of a deal was that? He walked out, gave him everything. Do you know that right now Afghanistan is one of the largest sellers of weapons in the world? They're selling the brand new, beautiful weapons that we gave them. But think of it. He actually said to me, but why do you show me a picture of my home? I said, you'll have to ask your people or one of your wives. But he could figure it out. And for 18 months, we had not one attack on an American soldier by the Taliban. 18 months. And then we had that horrible day where soldiers were killed. I was not there because of a ridiculous election. But we had that horrible attack. And they also gave up Bagram, one of the biggest bases anywhere in the world, air bases anywhere in the world, the longest runways, most powerful, hardened, thickened runways. We gave it up. And I liked it not because of Afghanistan. I liked it because of China. It's 1 hour away from where China makes their nuclear weapons. And you know who has it now? China has it now. We were keeping that. And now China is likewise circling Taiwan, and Russian warships and nuclear submarines are operating 60 miles off the coast in Cuba. Do you know that? No, the press refuses to write about it. If that were me running this country and we had nuclear submarines in Cuba, I will tell you that headlines every day would be, what's wrong with our president? You don't even hear this. You're not hearing about this. Russia has nuclear submarines and warships 60 miles away, Mr. Congressman, from Miami, by the way, happens to be here. Correct? In Cuba. And that would not be stood for if it were somebody else. They don't want to mention it, but now maybe they will. And the entire world, I tell you this, we want our hostages back, and they better be back before I assume office, or you will be paying a very big price. With our victory in November, the years of war, weakness, and chaos will be over. I don't have wars. I had no wars other than ISIS, which I defeated, but that was a war that was started. We had no wars. I could stop wars with a telephone call. I could stop wars with just a telephone call. If properly stated, it would never start. We will replenish our military and build an Iron Dome missile defense system to ensure that no enemy can strike our homeland. And this great Iron Dome will be built entirely in the USA. We're going to build it in the USA. And Wisconsin, just like I gave you that massive ship contract, and you're doing a very nice job, Governor, right? Thank you, Governor. And they're doing a great job. In fact, I had a little design change, and we gave them a tremendous for essentially what we used to call destroyers. These are now the most beautiful. They look like yachts. I said, we have to take the bow and we have to make it a little nicer and a little point at the top instead of a flat nose. And the people at the shipyard said, this guy sort of knows what he's doing. We have most beautiful ships, right, Governor? And everybody sitting over there. And it was a big contract that everybody wanted. I gave it to Wisconsin, but we're going to have a lot of that built right here in the state of Wisconsin and all other states. Israel has an Iron Dome. They have a missile defense system. 342 missiles were shot into Israel, and only one got through a little bit. It was badly wounded. It fell to the ground, but most of them are. And Ronald Reagan wanted this many years ago, but we really didn't have the technology many years ago. Remember, they called it Starship, spaceship, anything to mock him. But he was a very good president, very, very good. But now we have unbelievable technology. And why should other countries have this and we don't? No, we're going to build an Iron Dome over our country, and we're going to be sure that nothing can come and harm our people. And again, from an economic development standpoint, we're going to make it all right here. No more sending it out to other countries in order to help. It's America first. America first. We will unleash the power of American innovation. And as we do, we will soon be on the verge of finding the cures to cancer, Alzheimer's disease, and many other diseases. We're going to get to the bottom of it. You remember this gentleman that I don't want to mention other than one time I had to, because when you say the 10 worst, I had to do it. I didn't want anybody to be confused. But this man said, we're going to find a cure to cancer. Nothing happened. We're going to get to the cure for cancer and Alzheimer's and so many other things. We're so close to doing something great. But we need a leader that will let it be done. We will not have men playing in women's sports. That will end immediately. And we will restore and renovate our nation's once great cities, making them safe, clean, and beautiful again. And that includes our nation's capital, which is a horrible killing field. So many things. They leave from Wisconsin. They go to look at the Washington Monument. They end up getting stabbed, killed, or shot. We will be very soon very proud of our capital. Again, Washington, D.C. America is on the cusp of a new golden age, but we will have the courage to seize it. We're going to take it. We're going to make it a current. We're going to bring this into a golden age like never seen before. Remember this, China wants to do it. Japan wants to do it. All of these countries want to do it. We have to produce massive amounts of energy if we're going to produce the new. If you look at some of the things that have been done and some of the things that we're going to do, but AI needs literally twice the electricity that's available now in our country. Can you imagine? But instead, we're spending places where they recharge electric cars. They built 8 chargers at a certain location toward the Midwest. 8 chargers for $9 billion. Think of them as a tank for filling up your gas. Think of it. They spent $9 billion on 8 chargers, 3 of which didn't work. And if you were going to do this all over our country, this crazy electric mandate, if you're going to do this all, and by the way, I'm all for electric. They have their application. But if somebody wants to buy a gas-powered car, gasoline-powered car, or a hybrid, they're going to be able to do it. And we're going to make that change on day 1. So to conclude, just a few short days ago, my journey with you nearly ended. We know that. And yet, here we are tonight, all gathered together, talking about the future, promise, and a total renewal of a thing we love very much. It's called America. We live in a world of miracles. None of us knows God's plan or where life's adventure will take us. I want to thank Franklin Graham for being here tonight. He's an outstanding man. He wrote me a note recently. I have a lot of respect for him. Sir, I love your storytelling. I think it's great in front of these big rallies. But sir, please do me one favor. It won't make any difference. Please don't use any foul language. I was a little embarrassed. He said, it won't make any difference. Actually, it does. The story's not quite as good, but I've been very good. The story is not quite as good, to be honest. I've got to have a little talk with Franklin, but he was great. He's a great gentleman. His father was so incredible, Billy Graham. My father used to love taking me to see Billy Graham. My father would take me to see Billy Graham at Yankee Stadium. He had the biggest rallies you've ever seen. He was a good rally guy, too. But he'd get up, and he was a fantastic guy. My father loved Billy Graham. But I love Franklin Graham. I think Franklin's been fantastic. And I'm working so hard to adhere to his note to me. I'm working hard on it, Franklin. But if the events of last Saturday make anything clear, it is that every single moment we have on earth is a gift from God. We have to make the most of every day for the people and for the country that we love. The attacker in Pennsylvania wanted to stop our movement, but the truth is the movement has never been about me. It has always been about you. It's your movement. It's the biggest movement in the history of our country by far. Can't be stopped. It can't be stopped. It has always been about the hardworking, patriotic citizens of America. For too long, our nation has settled for too little. We settled for too little. We've given everything to other nations, to other people. You have been told to lower your expectations and to accept less for your families. I am here tonight with the opposite message. Your expectations are not big enough. They're not big enough. It is time to start expecting and demanding the best leadership in the world, leadership that is bold, dynamic, relentless, and fearless. We can do that. We are Americans. Ambition is our heritage. Greatness is our birthright. But as long as our energies are spent fighting each other, our destiny will remain out of reach, and that's not acceptable. We must instead take that energy and use it to realize our country's true potential and write our own thrilling chapter of the American story. We can do it together. We will unite. We are going to come together, and success will bring us together. It is a story of love, sacrifice, and so many other things. And remember the word devotion. It's unmatched devotion. Our American ancestors crossed the Delaware, survived the icy winter at Valley Forge, and defeated a mighty empire to establish our cherished republic. They fought so hard, they lost so many. They pushed thousands and thousands of miles across a dangerous frontier, taming the wilderness to build a life and a magnificent home for their family. They packed their families into covered wagons, trekked across hazardous trails, scaled towering mountains, and braved rivers and rapids to stake their claim on the wide open, new, and very beautiful frontier. When our way of life was threatened, American patriots marched onto the battlefield, raced into enemy strongholds, and stared down death and stared down those enemies to keep alive the flame of freedom. At Yorktown, Gettysburg, and Midway, they joined the roll call of immortal heroes. So many just so many heroes, so many great, great people. And we have to cherish those people. We can't forget those people. We have to cherish those people. And building monuments to those great people is a good thing, not a bad thing. They saved our country. No challenge was too much. No hardship was too great. No enemy was too fierce. Together, these patriots soldiered on and endured, and they prevailed because they had faith in each other, faith in their country, and above all, they had faith in their God. Just like our ancestors, we must now come together, rise above past differences. Any disagreements have to be put aside and go forward, united as one people, one nation, pledging allegiance to one great, beautiful, I think it's so beautiful, American flag. Tonight, I ask for your partnership, for your support, and I am humbly asking for your vote. I want your vote. It's going to make our country great again. Every day I will strive to honor the trust you have placed in me, and I will never, ever let you down. I promise that. I will never let you down. To all of the forgotten men and women who have been neglected, abandoned, and left behind, you will be forgotten no longer. We will press forward, and together we will win, win, win. Win, 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 win. Nothing will sway us, nothing will slow us, and no one will ever stop us. No matter what dangers come our way, no matter what obstacles lie in our path, we will keep striving toward our shared and glorious destiny, and we will not fail. We will not fail. Together, we will save this country. We will restore the republic, and we will usher in the rich and wonderful tomorrows that our people so truly deserve. America's future will be bigger, better, bolder, brighter, happier, stronger, freer, greater, and more united than ever before. And quite simply put, we will very quickly make America great again. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Wisconsin. God bless you. God bless you, Wisconsin, and God bless the United States of America, our great country. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Well, everyone, he spoke for about 90 minutes, just over 90 minutes. I saw Tamarica's husband just come into the room and say, how long has he been speaking? Well, it was just about an hour and a half. And I'm going to have to do a little bit of research and see how that compares to previous speeches that are acceptance speeches by presidential nominees. As we talked at the beginning of this broadcast, this was really President Trump's moment to talk about what happened to him over the last weekend, the assassination attempt, which he did so in depth and detail, and then also have an audience to talk about the way forward for the Republican Party platform, which he also did. Also, as we discussed at the top of this show, this is an interesting opportunity for any candidate to not only speak to your base, so those are your core supporters, the people that aren't going anywhere, but then also try to reach out to new voters as well, because you're on a big stage and you never know who you're going to catch along the way, surfing through social media, or you're going to find a viral post that's going to resonate with someone. And maybe that's the beginning of a relationship with that voter that then eventually motivates them to come out to vote for you, because we know how close these races are. But this concludes the Republican National Convention. It's going to be quickly to work for the Republican Party, as really the attention is going to shift back to the Democratic Party. We have a couple weeks before their convention at the end of August. And as we discussed, there's a lot of questions about the future for that party's ticket and what that could look like. So this is a moment in time for the Republicans, and it was a moment in time for President Trump. As we sort of take a step back from this speech, it's fresh. There's a lot of material there. I'd be very curious to see a transcript or a released text of the speech versus the speech that President Trump delivered. As you know, you're very familiar with President Trump. He likes to ad lib and he likes to add things as he's talking. So I'm curious how close he was to the speech that was prepared. Was he more or less in line? Did he go off a little bit more when he started to sound a little bit more like a political rally versus presenting a new party platform to his base and potentially new voters? So I'd be very curious to see that, along with the length of time, to see just historically how that all sort of works together. If I could describe the speech for you in quick summary, two things stand out to me. One, you had a very personal reflection at the beginning, and then you had a policy part. So it was really a two-part speech. First, the personal, then President Trump tried to switch to the policy. He didn't get very much in depth with some of that policy, but he did talk about what he wants to prioritize. And then he tries to switch back to the personal. So you saw the bookends of the personal, starting really, really big and personal and bringing it back to America and unity overall and those themes. One of the words that came up several times, at least twice I could catch, but these were important times, where he talked about pledging. I'm going to pledge to our nation. He said he's making a promise to the people of the nation. And that pledge is a very interesting word to use. Let me turn down this music a little bit more. There's actually an opera singer that's closing out the Republican National Convention, and we'll watch as this sort of clears out. You see the whole family for President Trump on the stage, which in and of itself, by the way, became a really important part of this speech, the stage, as well as his family being very key to the convention. And it'll be interesting to see if the Democratic Party does something similar. But getting back to the speech itself, so we had that personal story, those big theme items that bookended this speech. And then in the middle, there was the discussion about the policy. What was interesting about the policy is it actually matched the agenda of the Republican National Convention. So day one of the Republican National Convention was supposed to be about the economy, although it was a collection of a lot of different speeches and speakers. Then it got more focused. Make America Safe Again. That was day two. In the same way, President Trump started with the economy, Then he starts with goes to safety or immigration, a focus on immigration. And then day 3 of the Republican National Convention was about strength. And you saw as his third part for policy, President Trump talks about strength when it comes to foreign policy and America's position in the world. And he tried to take on critics and known criticism of him. You know, one of the things that we saw in the beginning of the video introduction to him tonight was about being able to meet with our adversaries. That's something that Democrats attack President Trump for being too soft, being too willing to meet with people like the leader of North Korea or the leader of Russia. But in that video, the Republican Party tried to say this is where President Trump is able to look them in the eye and to be able to square up on them. And you hear President Trump giving a kind of a different picture in this speech saying, well, I want to talk to them. It used to be good to be able to talk to your adversaries, and now it's no longer good. But look, we weren't in any wars when I was in power. So there's a little bit of push-pull of what the party's trying to present to take on critics, and also what President Trump is trying to say to explain his behavior in the past. There were some lines that I could see very easily being used, unfortunately, for the Republicans for the Democratic Party's purposes. You know, when President Trump said to the crowd in Wisconsin about holding the convention there, and everybody knows that parties are holding conventions in places that they really want to make sure that they secure the vote. So the Democrats are going to be in Chicago, which is a blue city. It's very friendly territory. But there's a strategic reason for that. And you have the Republicans in Wisconsin, a key swing state. They want to be there to try to court new voters to see if they could win Wisconsin. And so President Trump, as he does, as we've again seen for years, sort of ad-libbing, says, well, yeah, I'm just, listen, I'm trying to buy your vote. We're trying to buy your vote by having the convention here. Guaranteed that's going to be on a political ad somewhere. What he was talking about the economy and talking about what the plan was for the economy. He said, drill, baby, drill. He calls the Green New Deal the Green New Scam. He was talking about jobs and immigrants, illegal immigrants taking jobs that are really due to the Black and Hispanic communities. But he said Black and Hispanic jobs. He said sort of in a joking way, but again, you're looking for things that can be snipped and used by the opposite party. Hey, be excited. He's like, be excited about the future, rather than the flip would be inspiring people to be excited about the future. And he also said, you know, it used to be nice to get along with countries with nuclear weapons. So there were parts of this speech, even when he brought up, you know, Hannibal Lecter, where he was talking about illegal immigrants flooding into America. But this is very quintessential President Trump. Everybody knows who President Trump is. We've seen him in office before. He's been a very public figure for years. We understand how he speaks. You may like it, you may dislike it, but he's a known entity in that way. And what we could walk away with from the speech is we saw a delivery that was very in line with what we've seen in the past as far as when it comes to the policy side, which had a long list of different things that the president wanted to do, not super detailed, but again, that's not necessarily the forum for that. The difference that we saw was really at the beginning of the speech when he said, I am going to describe to you what happened in this awful attempt on my life. And I'm going to explain this to you once. And he just really set the tone and got the entire audience to listen to him. And that's a really key. It's key strategically, but there's a real lesson in here for all of us. When you are wondering what story to tell, you always should tell your story, because it's the story that no one else can tell. And in that moment, when he's telling this story, and I know he said he's only going to tell it once in detail, he was telling something to the American public that nobody else can tell. There's nobody else that can come up on stage and try to compete with that experience right now. I mean, I know we've been in a lot of historic events, but that's a very specific story that he owns. And certainly would probably prefer not to. But in that moment, he had command of the audience and command of a message that is very difficult to try to put side by side with another message. And it was definitely one of the key moments of this speech. But the lesson there again is when in doubt, tell your story because nobody else has that same exact story. But we switch quickly from that moment of reflection, relatively quickly, and kind of came into what would be more expected President Trump in the style and the cadence in which he talked and the ad libs and the kind of being very comfortable with the crowd. He did mention President Biden once by name. I'll be very curious to see what Democratic analysts or uh, insiders say about this speech. Because although President Trump was attacking the current situation, he has issue with the current state of America. As far as a lot of personal digs towards President Biden, Vice President Harris, you didn't hear their names in the speech almost at all. And so as he promised at the beginning of the speech to make this bigger, to say that I am more determined than ever, that I will never stop fighting for you and our magnificent country, to pledge to our nations, that elections should be about issues and that we want a successful, safe, free, and great America again, that we need to really respect our fellow citizens. Although he was critical of the current state of affairs, he was not attacking the administration in specific ways that were personal. And I wonder what the speech would have looked like if the events of the past weekend didn't happen. Will the Democrats respond in kind? We'll see. We'll see what that looks like. I'm very curious. What did you all think of the speech? How successful do you think it was in delivering the message? How do you feel about President Trump in reflection of this? Do you think this speech landed? Did it do what it needed to do? Do you feel refreshed or inspired? For those of you who are critics of President Trump, what do you think of this message and how difficult it will be to counteract Democrats? I'm very curious your thoughts. Let's just go quickly through some of the policy because I know we've talked about that, about what kind of details we were going to get. So with President Trump talking about the economy first, really it seems that the base of his economic plan is a few folds. One, drill baby drill, all about energy. Make America energy independent. Make sure that the fuel is accessible. He's talking about inflation. Many of you have asked about inflation, about how much a president can do for inflation. It's a great question. Part of the reason why we have inflation in America is because there's been overspending by the government. I mean, there's lots of different factors. There's supply and demand. There's a lot of different factors to inflation, which is why it's a difficult problem to counteract. One of the reasons we have inflation is both Democrats and Republicans have spent a lot of taxpayer money and through economic stimulus have flooded that money into the economy. So just think about it real basic. If you have a whole bunch of dollars being forced into the economy, what happens when you have a whole bunch of something? It could be strawberries, it could be pencils, it could be lip gloss. I'm looking at my desk. If you have a whole bunch of something, then the value of it goes down. And so that's part of the reason why we have inflation, is that there has been a lot of money spent by the government, pushed into the economy, and that lowers the power of your dollar. High inflation means your dollar buys you less, and you don't want that. You want your dollar to buy you just what it can, a little bit more than what we see right now. And so President Trump it's a very complicated economic, what would be the correct word? It's a very complicated economic situation, inflation. And if it was easy for anyone to fix, it would just be done. That's why there's a lot of debate about how to do it. And so when he's talking about inflation and counteracting inflation, he's talking about trying to bring prices down through energy production, drill baby drill, making sure that there's energy supply. He's also talking about placing taxes on goods coming into America, which the counter argument is to that it'll make things more expensive for us. But he wants to help America industry by making things here. So you see his plan is multifaceted, but we didn't get too much detail into really any of this except for the drill baby drill, which is obviously very specific as to what that means. As far as the border, one of the things he mentioned is shutting the border down completely. I'd be curious to ask him more about that. He mentions again, the largest deportation effort in American history would be upcoming. I would be curious to get some more details on that. He mentions the multiple high-profile cases of specifically women, including young women, who have been murdered by people that do not have or entered the country without legal status, but then were allowed to stay by the U.S. government in some cases. These are stories we've reported on for Smarter News. Yes, they can be used politically. That can feel very uncomfortable, obviously, because it's horrible events that took place. But also, some of these stories haven't gotten as much attention as other stories that the press has covered recently. And these stories are true. We have covered stories of these multiple murders in a variety of different states, including states that are not border states. So the argument for President Trump there is shut the border down and deport. What does that mean? We don't know. But he also said that he was able to negotiate directly by withholding aid from some of these countries that are south of the border to try to help us without this influx of people that are coming in. Really important point. Yes, we have seen historic levels under President Biden and this administration. Just recently, we saw a decrease of some border encounters. We only have one set of data to work from. And although we've seen a slight decrease at the border of encounters, that means people coming across the border without legal status, whether or not that's a trend, we're not going to know for several months. Bottom line is, it's historic. It was also historic under President Trump because there was a fear that he, along with the Republican Congress, would pass more strict immigration law, which didn't happen. And there was also a lot of people coming to the border just for a different reason. The comparison that he's using for a lack of activity at the U.S. border was during the pandemic when he shut the border down completely. And he had the power to do so because it was a national emergency. President Biden has that same power too. He doesn't have the pandemic as a reason to do it, but that is something that's an executive action. So we just have to remember, when you see comparisons when it comes to the U.S. border, 2020 is a tough year to compare to. The Biden administration does the same thing, talking about the economy. Look at all the job growth we had. Look at how good the economy is doing, but they're comparing it to 2020 when everything went flat. So the comparisons are going to look really good. They're going to look great for the economy for President Biden. They're going to look great for President Trump when it comes to the border, but they're comparing it to a historically very unique event. And we just have to remember that. I don't do any live fact checking. I'll leave that to the fact checkers to do, but I think that's an important thing for you to know. So, this is something that he talked about, obviously, during this part of the speech where he's talking about immigration, keep America safe. And then we get to the keep America strong. I'm putting it in that bucket. He's talking about foreign policy. And in this particular area, he's talking about stability. He did bring up and I'm curious how much he's talked about this before, building an Iron Dome, a missile defense system in the United States. And really his track record, which he's relying on to say, listen, America was safer under me. These different conflicts would not have happened. The conflicts that happened between Russia and Ukraine, the war between Russia and Ukraine, or Russia's invasion of Ukraine, maybe more accurate. And then Hamas's terrorist attack on Israel that sparked the war between Israel and Hamas. These things wouldn't happen under a Republican and specifically Trump administration. We have no way of knowing that, but this track record of foreign policy is one that he can easily speak about because we have seen recent conflicts all around the world. And that is a contrast that he's trying to draw. Totally different style of leadership when it comes to foreign policy between these two different administrations, Biden and the Trump administration. But this is the contrast. This is the contrast that he's trying to draw. Real quick about the economy. One of the things you all talked most about, which I actually thought was a very interesting proposal to wrap into this speech, is the no tax on tips. Did you catch that? That was, there's big economic policy, and then there's I don't want to say small economic policy, but these ideas that may come out that suddenly become bigger. And I wonder if this is one of those things. He said no tax on tips. He was talking to a waitress. She doesn't want, it'd be so much better if she wasn't taxed on her tips. And maybe we should just do no tax on tips in the service industry. Now, some of you on the chat, that was very astute. You said, well, what about paying people more hourly? Maybe that should be really the platform. But think about how catchy that is. No tax on tips, right? Make America great again. The Trump administration, no tax on tips. I wonder if I wonder how that played. There's, large service industry. We know inflation's really high. We know the economy is something that so many struggle with. I wonder if that's something that sticks from this. It definitely stuck with you. So however it landed, it sparked a conversation, and you wonder, well, is that going to be the big takeaway from this speech? Being such a long speech, this is very difficult. This is a very difficult edit for Smarter News. I took 2 sound bites from JD Vance last night. One was a personal anecdote, and one was more of a policy conversation. I thought those, if you didn't watch any of it, that would give you a good sense. This is going to be a sense of what he said. This is going to be a very difficult speech to edit. And this is the challenge when you talk a long time, because you're giving your audience a lot to think about and you're wondering what's going to actually stick with them. If you don't get repetitive, which he didn't get repetitive. The beginning and the end sounded sort of alike, but the inside, there wasn't a repetition the same way that JD Vance had it. You notice at the end, President Trump mentioned the forgotten man, but it's not like you walk away with like, oh, those are the things ringing in my ear, because there was a lot of content. My gut reaction here, maybe you'll see this on Smarter News, is that the 2 most powerful parts of this speech are the part where he discusses what it was like for him for the attempted assassination. One of the really key parts of that delivery was when he talked about the pain of being shot. I don't think anyone's talked about that. There's been so much discussion about what happened here and why it happened, which was obviously a really important question. And maybe people sort of shrugged it off like, oh, well, it just grazed him. Probably didn't hurt that much, and he's like, no, I was shot. It actually hurt a lot and it bled a lot. And I'm going to talk about it. It was a moment of like, oh, this man was shot and he's here to talk about this with us. And he's going to tell us something that only he can tell. I think that was a very key moment. And I do think this moment when he talks about being more than determined than ever to fight for voters. And he was saying, not just Republican voters, to fight for everybody. And maybe maybe taking that with the portion at the end of the speech where he's talking about unity. Any sort of editing around the policy conversation is going to be really difficult to edit because of the way he delivered it. And all of it sort of mattered. He's painting a picture of more or less what he'd like to do, without getting more in depth. Now, here's something I would say. I just made a couple of these notes just based on our interaction and what I'm hearing from you as our audience and what you would like from all the candidates, like not just Republican, not just Democrat, like everybody. I think these are some things that politicians and political parties really miss. Number one, I think people want more detail. They want more depth. The superficiality that's surrounding us all the time is fine. We can put that in a certain place of the viral videos and all of that. Like, we got that. But there's a big portion of voters that actually would like a deeper conversation about the economy. Like, how exactly are you going to fix this? And if you say you're going to lower taxes, what taxes? How's that going to affect me? How are you going to turn this inflation stuff around? Really, when you say drill, baby, drill, like, what does that mean day one? Like, does that mean my gas prices go down right away? Like, there are a lot of follow-up questions to that. And both main parties, as well as the independent candidate, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I think people are ready for a deeper conversation on any of these issues. People listen to 3-hour podcasts on protein and carbohydrates. That's the sort of media consumption we're all doing right now. I'm listening to this protein. I gotta listen to that stuff too. You never know what kind of supplements you need to take in this sort of stressful environment. But I can listen to something like that. People are used to listening to these longer, deeper conversations. And what I notice in the quote unquote mainstream media, but also mainstream politics, is this hesitancy still to go deeper. Go deep, take an hour, do an hour on it, do 2 hours. People want to hear what is exactly you want to do. The platitudes are fine. They give us some broad strokes, but really people want deeper. And this was very apparent during the pandemic, that we could have had really deep, interesting town halls with our leaders and with all, on all sorts of questions. And we missed that opportunity and we're still missing it. So that's something I notice. The other thing I've noticed about both parties is in their campaigns. So also in President Biden's recent interviews, in the debates, both of these individuals, President Trump and President Biden, but also the parties overall, are making this a referendum on each other. And that has very limited effects because they're bringing up stuff from the past. So when they're talking about thinking about the past and what they've done or haven't done, the past includes the pandemic and war and higher inflation and a period of great uncertainty and fear and school closures and all this stuff. The past is loaded. The past is loaded. And there's a lot of talk about the past from both political parties. What I hear from you and what I sense from the reporting that we do on a regular basis is a real desire to focus on what's next. Like there was that mention at the end about AI or artificial intelligence by President Trump. Like that could be a 3-hour conversation. But like, what does that look like in America? What is the future? How much is technology? These are, we have old problems, known problems, inflation, the border, security. Okay, well, what are the new solutions and new technologies that are going to help solve those problems? That's something else that I feel from you and feel from my own reporting is a real craving from the American people and a real opportunity for whoever wants to talk about that. That's not what this speech was. He talked about hope and he talked about the future, but that newness, that new energy is really ripe for any political party to pick right now. And it's the party that's really going to get the inspiring optimism and belief in not just hearing things are going to be better, but like thinking about, whoa, like I didn't even think about that. Maybe this is going to be new and different. And I'm excited about this for the first time in a long time because the last couple of years have been kind of a lot. That's going to be a real opportunity for the party. So the last thing I noticed, and the last thing I noticed here, and I'm very curious, again, looking at both political parties, is the conversation for the last 2 elections in the final weeks before the voting takes place always shifts to women voters. And women voters become these exotic creatures that nobody understands. And it happens every election cycle. The Republican Party here with JD Vance and with President Trump did not go specifically to try to cater to women. They talked about women, like President Trump talked about these women being hurt by illegal immigrants. But as far as speaking to the mothers of America or speaking to women in any sort of detailed way, which you got to be careful about because it can be patronizing, it can be pandering, and that doesn't feel good either. We didn't get that really from the Republican Party during this convention. That's not a standout theme. That has been a theme for Democrats who really want to talk about abortion and abortion policy. That's something we didn't hear from President Trump, obviously, and not from JD Vance. So that is fertile ground for the Democrats to continue to talk about if they think that's a winning agenda item for them or a policy item for them. And I'm wondering if it is. I don't know how that's playing out with voters. I think you have to be really careful with any voter, any sort of profile. You say, oh, well, you want to talk about women voters? We're going to get a woman to relate to you. Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time it doesn't. So I'm curious about that because it comes up every time. And every time everybody's late to the race, like, oh yeah, I forgot women vote. There's more women voters in America than men, and they vote at higher rates. Maybe we should have figured out what they wanted to hear about. And it's really as simple as that. Like, what do women voters actually want to hear about? Maybe the women voters are actually the ones that want the 3-hour conversation about the economy. Don't get it twisted. I don't want to maybe we don't really want to hear about women issues. Smarter News doesn't deliver women news. I just was thinking about what format could women easily access. And I knew if it worked for them, it would work for men just in the cadence of life. but I don't do women focused news, you know? I just do the news and I try to do it in a different way. Can I show you something? Two quick things, then I'll let you go because I know it's like almost 1:00 in the morning. I didn't want to share this. I actually have to airdrop something to myself from this weekend. I wanted to play this for you because I thought this was super interesting. So after the assassination attempt on President Trump, I was looking for a different sound that we use on our
And the
podcast.
moment there,
Sorry, for Scoop. And I often listen to the Sunday shows. So Jen Psaki is the former press secretary for President Biden. And she was talking about what does President Biden need to do in the interviews that he had scheduled for this week. And it's only a 10-second clip, but I want you to listen to this.
the moment there is not to talk about the political path forward. It is to be a healer and to lower the rhetoric and the tenor in the conversation in the country.
So I thought that was interesting language. She was saying that's what President Biden had to do. And I thought of that soundbite. We didn't use it in our broadcast on Monday. I thought of that soundbite for you guys because I wondered in the way that President Trump was speaking at the beginning of whether or not he was fulfilling that role as a bit of a healer. This is exactly what happened. This was the trauma. And this is how I'm going to turn the page and I'm going to redouble my efforts for you. Did President Trump actually do what Jen Psaki said President Biden should do and arguably did not do this week? The healer, the role of the healer. Is that really what Americans want from their next president? Maybe it's not a big idea guy like I'm thinking about. Maybe it's not someone that's super in depth. Maybe it's just somebody that's a healer, does no harm, that brings people together. So I was curious about your thoughts on that. And then I want to show you two quick things just from the production side. I'm sure you guys noticed this, but in case you didn't, oh, you know what? Let me see if I can pull these up. So during the presentation, did you notice the way that they were using the screens? And let me see if I can pull both of these slides for you. Whoops. It's very difficult to do this while I'm talking to you, but it's good. It's a good challenge. It keeps me on my toes. And you don't want to get too comfortable here. Okay. We got to keep pushing. We got to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. So did you notice that the screens that were being used, look at this. Let me take it full. Look at this. This is the image that was taken on the day of the assassination with the blood. The president was crouched behind the podium. I mean, look at the way that they used that image. It was very, very effective. And making sure that the audience could feel that moment. And then they switched over to this image. Again, all of the screens all lit up like this. This is a production moment that I haven't seen in the same way that I thought was particularly effective. Interestingly enough, I don't know what some of the rules are for when these photos. I don't know if this one was from the New York Times or the Associated Press. There were very similar ones from the photographers. And there's Getty Images there. There was Reuters. So oftentimes when these are copyrighted images, I don't know how they can be used by a political campaign. But now they're so widely distributed, can you tell the person that was shot they can't use it? That sounds unreasonable, right? And you're like, there might be laws, but it kind of sounds unreasonable. If you've been shot, maybe you get a pass on that. But I don't know how that shows up at the campaign later because there are some rules on that. So I thought that was a very key moment too. And yeah, so what do you think are the key moments? I know you all are you're probably done. Let's see if you're on the East Coast. Gosh, it's 12:40 in the morning. It is Friday tomorrow. So like you should, just kind of sail into the weekend. And here at Central Time, it's 11:40. So it was a long evening. What do you think of what I said as the major takeaways? Did those takeaways resonate with you? Did you follow the speech and do you feel differently? That's really the question. And it was the question after the debate. I don't mean to go back there 3 weeks ago, but despite all the hubbub, is a technical term, over the debate, there's a real question. Okay, clearly not a good performance by President Biden. And there was so much focus on him, what President Trump did or did not do didn't get the same amount of attention. The question was, though, was what happened enough to actually keep Democrats from voting at all, or people in the middle turning to, or independents turning to President Trump? Was it enough? It was certainly enough to worry Democrats, but would it be enough where they are like, we're not going to vote for President Biden if he remains on the ticket? A recent poll that just came out this week and is kind of wrapped up into this whole ball of wax of information of a lot of reporting about whether or not President Biden's going to stay in the race. Some of this recent polling is showing that he's not polling well when voters are asked about hypothetics. So that's the question about tonight. Do you think President Trump actually reached new people, grabbed them, and got them to kind of consider him as the next president? Let's see what some of you say. Rain says, I do feel differently. I actually want to vote for him. I'm close to center. That's interesting. Tanya, I feel differently after this speech. I did not after the debate. Tanya, what do you mean? I feel differently after this speech. I did not after the debate. Let's see. Christian says, yes, I do think he did that. So you do think that he grabbed people and maybe got a second look. It's not even about convincing them to vote for you right now. It's about the fact that they're not going to totally ignore you, right? Dana, I am an independent, but I'd never vote for Trump. I'm curious about why, Dana. Is it that you'll never vote for Trump, or that you are holding out for a different candidate, or you do want to vote on the Democrat ticket? Are you curious about what the Democrats are going to do? James says, yes, I'd say it certainly resonated with many fence voters. I think the Dems are just done with Biden. We'll see if the DNC gets a majority or if the superdelegates could get to help choose the candidate. There's all this kind of weirdness. James, are you following all of this? Like virtual voting for all the different requirements to get on a ticket in Ohio. It's not, I mean, at this time of night, after 3 hours broadcasting, I need a whiteboard. I need one of those to show everybody what we mean, but we'll see what the next several days bring. Christy says, this week I feel this Trump is remarkably different from 2016 or 2020 Trump. Christy, does that make you want to vote for him? Is that different in a good way or a bad way? Heather, let's see, Heather. I feel like the softness he showed may turn people towards him depending on what the Dems do. Very interesting. Dana's following up. She said, I decided in 2015 that I'd never vote for Trump. I saw what I needed to see with the Access Hollywood tapes. Wow, you're bringing us back, Dana. But to your point, that was very salient and a very key part of the campaign. Melissa, I like the personal connection stories. It seems like a theme. I'm taking him more seriously. So this is our own little, it's like our own little focus group. You know, how did it land? We watched it together, which was nice because you could kind of talk to each other during it. Heather, another Heather, he was humanized again this week, which I think is helpful and hard to do. It's hard to, isn't that funny? The very thing that makes us human or humanity is sometimes the hardest thing to feature or the hardest thing to see in people when they're going up for a position like politics. Lindsay said, I think this is what a tired, rundown Trump looks like, quite different from a tired Biden. Okay, Tanya's back with us. She said, he moved me tonight to support her. He didn't really change my thoughts after the debate. Still was not wanting to vote for him. Very interesting. So you see, a lot of you are having different experiences with this, right? And perceiving it differently. So we won't really know. There's always, so just a word of caution. There is usually after the RNC or the DNC, everybody's convention. Whoever got the most attention that week usually gets a little bounce in the polling. So I would expect that we're going to get some polling out that's going to say President Trump, is gaining more ground. That would be following a familiar pattern if past is precedent. So watch for that. Whether or not that can carry several months is a totally different question. But then remember that the Democrats have their convention closer to Election Day, end of August, and they will likely, we will see, see the same sort of thing. So I hate polling. I hate it. I'm fascinated with it as a journalist and I read it all the time. And then I hate it because then I know whatever I just read and thought was interesting is actually looking at what people thought 3 days ago and not what they're thinking right now in this moment, which is why actually our conversation is all the more valuable. Let's see. Cherie said this intentional speech for the people hit different in a good way. Very interesting. Suzanne, it would be interesting to see if he keeps the same newer, calmer tone throughout the rest of his campaign. Excellent point, Suzanne, because he said, I didn't say it, he said the name Biden once. Again, was he off script there? Or was that like, was his whole team like, no, don't do it? Will he actually do that on the campaign trail? And quite frankly, guys, we don't know what the campaign trail is going to look like for President Trump. Have you thought about that? We're used to these big rallies. We're used to him being able to pull in a crowd. We're used to him getting that energy. We're used to the campaign relying on some of those images too. He walks up on stage, he yells at the press, they don't tell the truth. There's a big crowd, they cheer, there's all the people supporting him, bleachers behind and front. It's a familiar scene. The question is, will they continue to do that? Just for security. Security, it's very scary, isn't it, to think about all of that? And really, quite frankly, for everyone, not just for him. So I'll be curious to see what the campaign will do. Do they do this one big speech and kind of keep him behind the scenes a little bit, just as things shake out? One other part of the speech, and then I really will let you go. There was news today and over the last couple of days about the investigation, and that includes Republicans in the House calling the Secret Service director to testify. They subpoenaed her, so we expect her to testify on Monday. The Secret Service tried to push back and said, we'd love to talk to you about this, but can we do it not on Monday because it's just after the convention? And they were like, no. From what I understand. Let's see. I think the date is, I just have it pulled up right here. Issued a subpoena Wednesday to appear before the committee on Monday. So they were actually asking, I think the Secret Service was asking for the following week and like the end of next week. And they said, no, we're subpoena. We want her to appear on Monday. There's several different investigations going into this, to not only the Secret Service, but obviously what happened. There's new reporting by the Associated Press that suggests that the shooter had on him all sorts of different political information, including information on the DNC, information on the FBI director, to show that in many ways he was just the reference is, or the inference is that he was just looking to target someone politically, not necessarily target President Trump alone, that he had a lot of different people that he was looking at. We don't know. I'd be super careful with any of this reporting until we hear from the Secret Service on the record, which we likely will do on Monday. President Trump was very, very careful about not criticizing the Secret Service at all, and not even raising a question, not really raising a question at all about whether or not people were trying to protect him. And he said, he had a nice reference to the Secret Service that they rushed to the stage. They're great people at great risk, and that was a moment where he rose above some of the conversation that's happening even within members of his own party to say that this, whatever happened, was a failure on their part. So thought that was also notable. So a lot to look at here. Keep your questions, your comments coming. We're going to use them in our reporting. This has been great fun. I appreciate spending this time with you and look forward to doing this again. I wanted to do whatever we could do for the Republican National Convention. I want to be able to do for the Democratic National Convention. And without going too far overboard and tiring you guys, figured the big speech is what we should do. So expect the same when we go to the Democratic National Convention. There were several key moments for the RNC that I'd love to pull out that were just real human moments. And those happen for Republicans or Democrats. You get someone step to the stage and they do something amazing. And they remind us how amazing people are. And although politically different and diverse, there's some incredible stories out there. So in that way, these conventions, although they can just feel like an advertisement, there are these moments, these really big moments for people that are sharing their story openly with other people, with strangers. And I think it's special. I think it's special. I'm also fascinated by people that are politically motivated to attend events like this because it's just not in my nature, which is why I do nonpartisan news. So I'm sort of fascinated, and like, it's amazing to see people really connected and wanting to fight for something and show up in person. Again, no matter the party, it's a really interesting part of the American political process, and I don't think we really step back enough to realize how rare that is, that there's so many countries you can't show up at all. I mean, you can't even talk to your neighbor about how you feel about politics because you're worried about someone coming to knock on your door. So we don't want to forget that part of America, even if we disagree with the party's platform. So I'll leave you with that thought today. This was a great exercise in liberty. So congratulations. You did a great job. Thanks for helping me produce this broadcast. I appreciate it. We will get to work at midnight. We will get to work and try to do a little summary as well across social media channels. But I appreciate your time. I appreciate witnessing this part of American history together. And I look forward to your questions, thoughts, comments. You can always email us hello@smarternews.com. All right, guys, thanks for making Smarter News a reality. And I'll see you soon with quick, concise, nonpartisan news. Bye.